Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everyone? Pleasant good evening to you all. Dissidents, welcome to the Do Dissidents Podcast Wednesday night edition. Keaton Weiss here, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
Live from New York City.
It's Saturday night. No.
That's right. That's right. We will try to keep this as joyous an atmosphere as we can. It's not going to be easy. It is autumn in New York. It is autumn in America. It is just such a bummer. I mean, there's just a horrible feeling in the air.
I like autumn in New York.
Yeah, autumn in New York is great. The weather is great.
It's Catcher in the Rye weather.
It is. No, I love the weather. I love the
weather.
weather.
You go to Central Park, you wonder where the ducks go in the winter.
Oh, yeah, no. Autumn in New York, autumn in the Northeast. Weather-wise, it's my favorite time of the year. But there is really a sense that winter is on its way, is there not? Just with everything going on in the world.
Winter is
unbelievable.
Coming.
Winter is definitely coming. It is definitely coming. And so we are going to do our best to put on the best show we can tonight. Obviously, we have a lot to cover, a lot of Israel-Palestine developments. They're coming at us, 20 per day. So it is hard to keep up with everything. That's one of the good things about having our Friday morning shows as well, is that we can push some stuff to Friday morning, so we'll have plenty of time to catch up on the latest developments. There are too many to choose from. We want to start with a little bit of good news, though. A little bit of good news
is my camera a little tilted? Because my shelves look tilted. Why do my
it
shelves
looks fine
look
to me.
tilted
There you
like
go. That looks good.
Okay.
I dig that. That's fine.
All right.
Good news is it is Courtney's birthday. Elizabeth Marshall wished Courtney a happy birthday. Courtney Conover, friend and supporter of the show. So happy birthday to you, Courtney. We appreciate that. Why don't we give Courtney a little cowbell ring? Courtney bought us the cowbell. So why don't we do a little birthday cowbell ring for Miss Courtney Conover? October 11th. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Happy birthday, Red.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Hope the birthday is going well for you all. We have 361 here.
Listen, Keaton doesn't want to be
YouTube
part
chat.
of it, but we got to get together because I'm running as Devo for the Green Party for the Green Party nomination.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a powwow last night on the supporter stream. For those who are not signed up as Patreon members, sign up and gain access to our patron exclusive streams. We were talking about last night how perhaps Russell and I should run for the Green Party nomination. We formed an exploratory committee, shall we say, between Russell, myself, and Courtney. And after, careful consideration for 4.5 minutes, I decided not to run. I decided to suspend my campaign. I withdrew my candidacy. Russell is still exploring. Russell is still considering it. Indeed.
My exploratory committee is still active.
Man, it feels like a year ago when we were worried about Cornel West, right? Like with all this Israel-Palestine stuff, it feels like, wow, what a simpler world that was just last week when we were worried about this shit.
Well, you made a great point earlier offline about Tucker calling this shit, man. Like, hey, you just don't even know what turns things are going to take. Like, people who are just expecting a normal process are kidding themselves.
Yeah, exactly. We did a segment, I guess it was a couple weeks ago by now, where Tucker Carlson was giving a speech in Wilmington, Delaware, talking about how he doesn't think that the election is going to be between Trump and Biden. He thinks we're going to be living in a completely different world by this time next year. And I thought that speech was really on point and was probably going to prove quite prescient. And here we are, just a week and a half later, right? This is a completely different world than one that we thought we were going to be living in. Not that we shouldn't have been able to see something like this coming. I've talked to, one of my big lines that people quoted me on Twitter from last show was that the world has failed Palestine. And, it's true. Like this was something that we could have seen coming miles away. This is something that's been in the works for many, many decades. And it's terrible that the world took their eye off the ball and that the left took their eye off the ball. And now we have to live with that. We have to grapple with that. And, that's how I'm choosing to process and cover these developments. Obviously, we have more developments that we're going to be covering later on. But, you just have to look at this and think this just got out of control to the point where it doesn't seem like there's anything that can stop it. We're going to cover Norm Finkelstein's interview with Pasta on the Jimmy Dore show from Monday night, which was unbelievable. It was a fantastic interview. Big ups to Pasta, big ups to Jimmy for allowing them to have that conversation, that candid conversation at that time. It was really, really well done. But one of the things that Norm said...
There's like back-to-back you had news stories that were right in Norm's wheelhouse.
Oh, yeah. Making the rounds, yeah. Between Ibram Kendi and the Israel thing, obviously.
Like his life's work have been the headlines of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But one of the first things he said, if you remember, because you started watching the clips in chronological order because you didn't watch it live, one of the first things he said was that, after 4 decades of activism around this cause and 4 decades of scholarship, I've kind of come to the unfortunate conclusion that there's nothing that can be done. And that's a tough feeling to sit with. It really is. And it's got to be tougher for him because he, really gave his life to that issue. But it's extremely troubling.
Well,
and,
he said that more as
later.
he said that more as a mea culpa. Like he was kind of like he said in 2020, I had come to that conclusion. So it was kind of a confession. It seemed like I took that as he was saying he's re-engaging in the fight now, that he shouldn't have given up on it.
Well, that was a more positive interpretation, I think, than mine, but that's fair enough. That's not how I read it in the moment, but maybe
that was how he framed it. He said, "It's embarrassing to me, but I have to admit that around 2020, I decided that there was nothing that could be done." And he went on to say, "Well, my parents were in concentration camps, and I abandoned people who were in a concentration camp." So I took it as he was saying he was wrong.
I hope so. But we will talk plenty about Israel-Palestine a bit later in the show. Folks, I know this is probably old news by now. This is kind of passé. This kind of feels a bit irrelevant now. But in case anybody did forget, there is a war in Ukraine going on. And Republicans were able to block funding for the war in Ukraine in their ousting of the Kevin McCarthy speakership. That whole episode really revolved around a spending bill that ultimately was passed by Kevin McCarthy with the Democrats' help without aid to Ukraine. And Matt Gaetz, after that bill was passed, came out and said, well, I think that McCarthy is making some sort of secret deal with Democrats to get funding passed, and we haven't really seen much reporting on that. We did see reporting, though, just a couple days ago from the Wall Street Journal. Congressional showdown. Can lawmakers boost Ukraine aid by 50 billion or even more? Some senators from both parties say a year-long package is the best way to overcome House upheaval and signal support to Kyiv. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Pro-Ukraine senators from both parties, unnerved by the upheaval in the House, say they want to move quickly to pass a year-long aid package for the war-torn country that far exceeds the amount of aid requested by President Biden in August and would last through the 2024 election. Biden requested $24 billion in additional aid in August, drawing opposition from many Republicans who have grown wary of further funding for the war. Now, supporters of Ukraine in the Senate are aiming to offer a much bigger and longer-term package with a price tag between $50 billion and $100 billion. Many pro-Ukraine senators say that passing a large package sufficient to carry Ukraine through the next U.S. Election, pardon me, would send a strong message abroad that chaos in the House won't affect America's long-term commitment to Ukraine as it struggles to push out invading Russian forces. Proponents also say it would be easier to win support for one big package versus several smaller packages, especially from Republicans under growing pressure from their party's voters to oppose further spending on the war. Okay, so there's a lot to analyze just in that one sort of mini paragraph there. First of all, Ukraine, as it struggles to push out invading Russian forces, Glenn Greenwald tweeted out a great graphic about a week ago showing that the front lines in the war really have not moved at all in the past year, which shows that this is just being fought for the sake of being fought. That's one thing. So the Ukraine summer offensive was obviously a failure, as we are well past the summertime, and there seems to be pretty much unanimous consensus that that was a dud. The other thing, it'll be easier to win support for one big package versus several smaller ones. That's them looking into the future and understanding that the war in Ukraine is going to become less and less popular over the course of the next year as the election draws nearer and nearer. And so if they want to get the money out the door, they better just do it now. Because if they try and slow drip it, it's going to be harder and harder to get packages passed, especially with the Republican holdouts threatening to oust any speaker who pushes it through. Do you have anything to add? We have a little bit more to read.
This whole premise is so fucking stupid that I don't even get how they got here. Like, why do they believe this would work? What part of what happened last week did they not understand? Right. They literally removed a Speaker of the House, partly on the suspicion that he was secretly working with Democrats to give money to Ukraine. Why on earth do you think that it would not be deadly for whoever ends up, whether it be Scalise or Jordan or Donald Trump, in that position to make such an agreement? They'll remove that speaker too. Like, this whole thing is just wishful thinking. Unless there's some secret deal with Gates, what are you even talking about? Like, this just seems like a desperate fantasy to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they actually mentioned that in the article. I want to be one and done, said Senator Lindsey Graham. I want to get them through next fighting season, through next year, so the Russians would realize this gets worse for them, not better. Okay, first of all, idiot. If they know that Ukraine has a set amount of funding for the year, that makes it easier for the Russians to strategize and wait them out, not harder. Okay? Right. I don't know why I know that and you don't. You are a much more experienced warmonger than I. I don't see why I should have to educate you on that point. So that's just, number one, idiotic. But number two, they're doing this because they know that there will be a political price to pay for authorizing further aid in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months in 1 year. But, as Russell pointed out earlier, any future aid package is expected to meet resistance from the expanding ranks of Republicans who have grown frustrated by what they see as a lack of accountability for the funding already sent to Ukraine and who oppose pumping billions more into an overseas war effort instead of addressing pressing issues at home, such as border security. So, it goes on. It is unknown how the weekend attack on Israel by Palestinian militants, sorry, it's a little small, might alter lawmakers' thinking on aid for Ukraine. The surprise Hamas assault sent shockwaves through Washington and has already refocused U.S. attention on helping a key Middle East ally. The ouster of Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker further imperils future Ukraine funding. Excuse me. Even if the new speaker supports Ukraine aid with a historically narrow margin of 221 to 212, he could lose no more than 4 GOP votes to advance most legislation if all House Democrats vote no. Now, all House Democrats are not going to vote no on a standalone aid package to Ukraine. However, as the piece writes on, seeking help from those said Democrats to advance a bipartisan bill that included Ukraine aid could result in a motion to vacate the chair, the same resolution to oust the speaker by majority vote that brought down Kevin McCarthy, which speaks to what Russell was just saying, right? If they, team up, if whoever this new House Speaker is teams up with the Democrats and does the same thing that McCarthy did, only this time with a standalone Ukraine package, well, then what's to stop Matt Gaetz from doing the exact same thing he did? And do the Democrats step in and save that new speaker? Maybe. Is that something you want to bet on? Because probably not. They probably like taking the money, especially if it's a one-and-done deal, right? Because this is the other thing that's so stupid about this. Okay, if you pass $100 billion all at once and that gets Ukraine through the next year, then there's really no incentive for the Democrats to bail out the new speaker who did that for them because the money's already out the door. They don't need you for more Ukraine money. Right. And, Ukraine money is basically the only thing that Democrats and Republicans are going to want to work together on. So if you give it to them a year out, then what's to stop the Democrats from just hanging whoever that new speaker is out to dry, and then the Republicans bounce him, and then you're back in this same situation again.
Well, that's what's so stupid about this whole premise, because you're looking at Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise. Neither one of them are going to approve this. Neither one of them are going to see themselves get the McCarthy treatment in order to push a bill like this through. Right. So what are we even talking about? This is one of those things where it's just like, yeah, if wishes were fishes, we'd all be casting nets. Like, what are you even talking about, guys? Like, what? This is not going to happen. In what universe is that a workable plan?
The only universe in which that's a workable plan is a universe in which whoever the next speaker is willing to be speaker for 2 weeks in order to get this Ukraine aid passed. Like, they'd have to basically sacrifice their career for Ukraine.
Right.
And that would be
neither
the sole
Scalise or
of
Jordan will do that. Right. Right.
Yeah,
and the people who are, it's going to be Scalise or Jordan, it looks like. Neither one of them are going to do that. They're much closer to the Getz wing, which is why one of them is going to end up the speaker, because that caucus approves of them. So it's just one of those things. It's so incredibly stupid. You just wonder how they came up with this plot. I mean, I guess they just can't just throw up their hands. They have to come up with some bullshit. But no, it's over. It's done. As soon as that happened, Ukraine funding was over, at least until the next election. I mean, the Democrats would have to take back the House. Like, as long as the Freedom Caucus has the power to shut that down, there will be no Ukraine funding. I don't see how there would be.
Well, lucky for them, just as one warmongering window closed, another one opened, right? Because now maybe they take the Iran-Russia route to World War III rather than the Ukraine-Russia route to World War III, right? As Tucker
a lot of money to
said,
be made in World War III.
Yeah, as Tucker said, never know what's going to happen. You never know what the future brings. They're always 2 steps ahead of you, right? So all this pontificating, all this predicting is really just pissing in the wind, right? At the end of the day. All righty, folks. So let's take some super chats here. Let's go to, Patrick Donahue. Thank you for the €5. Bernie and AOC lacked the moral courage to do the right thing for Palestine. AOC backtracked on Palestine in their first week in office. No surprise there. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that. I hope you got to Dublin safely the other night. I know you were super chatting us last night on a late night drive, so I hope you're safe and sound there. Gabriel L., thanks for the $5. I never have time to watch the whole thing live. Finally caught the beginning. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. Abiding, thank you for the 99-cent
your wife leave you? That's why you had time?
Who? Oh, Gabriel. Yeah, I thought you were talking about Patrick. No, Patrick was on the drive.
Usually
no,
that's family time, but you're sleeping in a cheap motel tonight.
Yeah, exactly. We got a Rumble, not a Rumble rant, but Jake is fielding comments on Rumble. So Jake, our producer, is in the house. A round of applause for Jake, and he is fielding Rumble rants and pitching some Rumble chat. So he said, Pickles321 says over on Rumble that The Guardian laid out today how there's a House mechanism to get bills passed once per Congress-like term without the Speaker, so Dems could introduce a $100 billion aid package and pass with the neocon defectors. Interesting. Maybe that's what Matt Gaetz was talking about. Who knows? But if that's what he was talking about, then I guess it wouldn't really matter, right? Kick him out or not kick him out.
Okay.
But that's an interesting angle. Thank you for that. Eric Rousseau, thanks for the $2. And for the rock and roll sign. Yes, rock and roll, my friend. Kuznetsky Bassane, thank you for the $4.99. Appreciate that very much. Indeed. And that would make sense, because if they're going to do one and done, that's why they would make it big, right?
That if there's a way for them to get it through around the Republicans, I don't see how you get that through the Republicans.
Right. Well, it would have to be a bipartisan thing, obviously. Yeah, right. Obviously. Right. All righty, folks. Let's go to segment number 2. This is a story, folks, that would have been the big story of the week were it not for the new war that broke out. But this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in Philadelphia.
I'm just going to say I never heard of this person. This is in the chat. Keaton and Russell, the Duran, just did an interview with Alistair Crook. And I read Alistair Cook. I was like, what, did they have a seance? What the? How did they manage that? Do you know who that is? Alistair Crook? I don't know.
No, I never heard of him.
Please watch. I did not know all this undercover events was taking place in Israel, Palestine. All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, we will check that out for sure. So, folks, this would have been the big news of the week were it not for the new war that dropped over the weekend. But this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, doing a sort of campaign relaunch as an independent. So we're going to go to what should have been, I guess, the beginning of his speech, but he had a little bit of technical difficulties getting started. Here's RFK taking the stage, launching as an independent.
I need my speech. You can't read anything. There's no words on it. I'm trying to read it. There's no words there. Fucking thing sucks. Yeah. Fuck it. We'll do it live. All right. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Cheryl, go out and tell Curb Your Enthusiasm stories until I find the speech.
Fucking thing sucks. So once he got the technical stuff worked out, he talked about why he is declaring his independence, as should his supporters there. Let's hear a brief excerpt from RFK's speech.
To declare our independence, I've come here today to declare our independence from the tyranny of corruption, which robs us of affordable lives, our belief in the future, and our respect for each other. But to do that, I must first declare my own independence. Independence from the Democratic Party, and from all other political parties. I haven't made this decision lightly. It's very painful for me to let go of the party of my uncles, my father, my grandfather, and both of my great-grandfathers, Honey Fitzgerald.
You know my grandfather,
Patrick,
the gangster.
was the first Irish Catholic ghetto mayor of Boston. And Patrick Kennedy, who was a ward boss in Boston. Both of them launched our political dynasty over 100 years ago. But my sacrifice is nothing compared to the risk our founding fathers took when they signed the Declaration of Independence 247 years ago. They knew that if their revolution failed, every last one of them would be hanged. They chose to place everything on the line. When John Adams put his pen down, after adding
Or the
his
risk
signature
that
to
my
the
uncle took
Declaration,
when he crossed Big Sam
turned to those
Giancana.
men.
We all know how that turned out.
Live or die, survive or perish. From this day on, I am with my country. I'm going to make that same pledge to you today so that I can stand before you as every leader should stand before you, free of partisan allegiance, free from the backroom deals, servant only to my conscience, to my Creator, and to you.
All right. Now, when you look at something like that, Bernie Sanders running independent in 2016 was just the common sense thing to do. It wouldn't have even been a particularly radical thing to do. RFK's rationale is that people have invested in my candidacy. My candidacy has given hope to a lot of people. He said that in his video. And he feels like he has some responsibility to his constituency, to his supporters, to take his candidacy as far as it can go. And if he's being cheated or fucked over by the Democratic Party, it's just common sense that you would run as an independent. There's nothing really radical about it. And so you watch that and you think, what could have been? Because he had about 1,000 people at this event. It wasn't particularly well attended. You had Bernie Sanders filling stadiums in 2016. Imagine the moment that would have created. Imagine the world, what the world would have looked like had he done that. We'd be living in a completely different world. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that all of the excitement was drained from this event as soon as the Israel war broke out, because his stance on that issue just makes his candidacy a non-starter. How do you get excited about that?
It made it something people can't even ignore.
People can't even.
Some
didn't
people
even
tried
watch
to.
this. What Pasta said to Norm Finkelstein was when he was interviewing him, and Pasta was a big RFK supporter, or at least a backer of RFK, not a formal endorser of RFK. He always had this reservation. It was actually Pasta that asked him the first question about this when he deleted the tweets in support of Roger Waters. But Pasta told Norm the other night, he says, I wasn't even interested in watching this. That tells you what you need to know.
When you've lost the Pasta vote.
Right, he's lost the Pasta vote.
Yeah. That's the second time we did not kill that loot.
We forgot.
We've
Had a
been
lot
mad
going
about
on.
that 2 nights in a row.
Yeah, a lot of show prep must have slipped through the cracks. But yeah, I mean, superficial to say, obviously, because ultimately, RFK's campaign launch is irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, right? Obviously, the human life that's been lost so far and the human life that's going to be lost in the coming days, weeks, and months and years is obviously much more important. But you couldn't get worse timing for people like us to give a shit about RFK's speech. Because even, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep monologuing.
No,
I'll just make one more quick thing. It's my fault. Even Russ and I, who have been highly, highly, highly critical of RFK, gave him credit for making this move, and we were excited to see what would happen, right? Just that chaos factor, right? Just the, let's see if we can not endorse the candidacy, but sort of root for the candidacy to cause maximum chaos within the system. With his stance on Israel, one of the things we're realizing now is not to keep blackpilling people, but just how hopeless the political system is, because he is worse than all of them on this key issue. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Sorry I went long. It's hard for me to contain myself tonight. It really is. This is not easy. This is not an easy show to do. It really isn't.
It's rough. I think what this is bringing out, though, and this keeps coming up in a lot of different areas, the old calculus on this issue is completely shattered. And I think where you're seeing it in the most surprising place is with liberals, because liberals have been told they're the prime identity politics people, right? They're the ones who have most been trained to substitute identity politics for class consciousness, right? So they've been told for years that, we have to decolonize, and you have to decolonize curriculums, and you have to decolonize your mind, and you have to support indigenous people, and you have to support marginalized people. This is what you've been telling them.
Right.
This is what you've been telling them. So then all of a sudden there's a conflict between brown people in this open air prison and colonizers mostly from outside the region or descended from outside the region, who have been abusing them for almost 100 years. And they didn't get the reaction to the I Stand With Israel that they expected.
Right.
Not even, from people like us, they expect us to reject that. But they're getting rejections, the people who follow George Takei rejecting that formulation, right? There's a backlash that I think a lot of cultural elites and thought leaders did not expect around this. I was telling you about this. I saw a meme today that I thought was very clever. That was like an actor with two cell phones. One, I stand with Israel, one, I stand with Palestine. And it said an actor trying to figure out whether he stands with Israel or Palestine. Right. Like, what's the move?
Right. Whose call do I take?
Right, exactly. And that's something that would have been a no-brainer 10 years ago.
Yeah, indeed. Stone 122112 says on Rumble, this is related to this segment here. One of the main points of RFKJ's campaign is to expose the DNC and Dems as mega corporate shills, especially after the Obamacare takeover, which benefits Big Pharma. Yeah, I've heard that point, and I understand that there are people out there who found some rhyme and reason in that. My response to that is his core constituency are disaffected left-wing populists and basically conservatives who are not too big on Trump, but like some of the more populist teams in Trump's platform. Both of those groups already hate the Democrats. They already understand that the Democrats are beyond repair. So respectfully, I would just say that this whole launching as a Democrat seemed like a big therapy session for him personally. If you listen in that speech, he said, it breaks my heart to do this. My family was Democrats. This is what we said earlier. Like, your emotional loyalty to the Democratic Party is not the country or the world's problem. You owe it to whatever movement you're trying to build to get over that and get over it quickly so that you can, if you are open to running as an independent, just hit the ground doing that. Like, I don't know how many other people needed an education about how worthless the Democratic Party was that got one through his campaign and the way they tried to box him out. His core constituency are disaffected left-wingers and basically former Trump supporters. Both of those groups are very, very, very familiar with how much the Democrats suck. He's the Kennedy. Yeah. He's the guy who didn't get it.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, that's why he didn't get it. So, okay, like, that was all well and good. But now that this is going to, at least for the foreseeable future, be the issue of the moment, this is going to be the most divisive issue in the country.
You mean the Israel-Palestine?
The Israel-Palestine. His position on that is a deal breaker for a lot of the people who would be most likely to support him. I mean, he'll only be left really with his support from the right, and only from portions of the right that have absorbed that fanatical pro-Israel mindset. And for those people, a lot of his other views would be anathema.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, there were people who were already posting about his gun control stances, which they didn't like.
That's what I'm saying. The people from the right who are going to love his Israel position are going to hate his guns position. Right. So
what's he got?
Who's going to back his campaign now?
Well, you know who's not backing his campaign?
Shmuley. He's got the Shmuley vote.
He's got the Shmuley vote. But you know whose votes he does not have? The Kennedys. Here's Kerry Kennedy. Bobby might share the same name as our father, but he does not share the same values, vision, or judgment. Today's announcement is deeply saddening for us. We denounce his candidacy and believe it to be perilous to our country. That's the graphic that they put out, signed Rory Kennedy, Kerry Kennedy, Joseph Kennedy II, and Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. In addition to getting shit from his own family, Rob Reiner was not happy about his candidacy either. Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s announcement to run as an independent is dangerous and cynical move by wealthy Republicans to put Trump back in the White House. I talked with Bobby and told him what he's doing could destroy American democracy. He didn't care.
Yeah, and that's in a nutshell the problem with your whole fucking liberal class, Rob. There is no American democracy, you schmuck. There's American democracy for you. For people who are fabulously wealthy. You have some say in the system. The poors don't. The rest of us don't. We're fucking peons, man. We don't have a say. You know, this was one of the things I was actually thinking about quite a lot in my recent journeys and adventures. You know, you talk about Greek philosophy, or talk about all these figures in Rome. And you talk about the culture and the art that they created and the political systems they created. You know, who are you talking about? You're talking about, when you talk about the history of cultures and civilizations, you're talking about the conversations and thoughts of its aristocracy. I mean, that's really who you're talking about. Wait, what do you think? Aristotle was a baker? He came from from a privileged family. All these guys did. Plato, you know, they all came from money. Same in Roman society and same in American society. When you're talking about the 60s, who do you think you're talking about? Who do you think was at Woodstock? The working class? Right. So all these are the people who feel that they live in not only a democracy, but they're the ones who feel like they have a stake in the great debates of their time. Because they do, because they influence the outcome. I had somebody say to me the other day, because I was going off on some, you know, cultural issues, and they said, well, you know, these are things that concern a very small number of people. I said, you're absolutely right, and that's the problem. It's a very small number of people who have an outsized control over the course of society and the cultural conversation because they control the means of communication.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, the thought did cross my mind. The thought's been on my mind all week that part of the reason why there is no political organization behind any sort of pro-Palestinian sentiment, and by pro-Palestinian sentiment, I simply mean affirming the humanity of the Palestinian people. The reason there's no organization behind that is because the left is fucking weak. And one of the reasons why the left is so weak right now is because we spent a great part of the last 7 years litigating who shits in what shit box, right? Like that is a big
by
part
design.
Of this. Yes, by design, absolutely. I just want to play one response here.
Although, look, in an unusual word of hopefulness in regards to what I'm saying about how you couldn't drill people with all this decolonization of your mind stuff and sending the children of the elite classes to go and study history from a critical theory perspective. Well, now you had 30 groups at Harvard that signed a letter of support for the Palestinians, and Harvard panicked, but under pressure. At first, they didn't say anything. I think they wanted to just stay neutral. And then under pressure, they denounced it. This is what I'm saying. Like, normally, you wouldn't expect that from the Harvard groups.
Right.
They're being trained to be the pro-Israel kind of people. But, hey, man, they took you seriously. You spent all these years laying all this decolonizing perspective on them, and now you've got an actual conflict between a colonized people and their colonizers, and they took what you said to heart more than I would have expected. Honestly,
said to them? He said that this perspective lacks nuance. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Which we might cover on Friday morning. Like I said, there's all these stories coming at us faster than we can catch all of them. But we might do that on Friday morning. But I thought a great response to Rob Reiner was from Roseanne Barr, who replied, "You told someone that them running for president will destroy America, and they didn't care about your opinion? Do they not understand that you're a very smart man?" That's crazy. He should immediately drop out. As you know, democracy is dangerous to our democracy, and we can't let Americans vote for who they want. That would be pure fascism. Yeah. You know you've sunken very, very low when Roseanne Barr is embarrassing
is owning you
on Twitter and owning you. Yeah, indeed. I called Bobby and told him that he could destroy democracy, and he didn't care. I'd have loved to be tapping the phone on that call. I'd love to be listening in on that call. See how that went.
It's basically like the meathead got owned by Archie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. Folks, we are a few segments in, so let's take a quick pause to let you all know that you can support this show by going to patreon.com/do dissidents. And that is what keeps this show afloat. That's what keeps us going. Patreon members get their name up in lights here on the show credits. They also get call-in access to our Sunday Q&As, so we did change our call-in policy. I announced that formally on the Patreon email that went out this afternoon, as well as the Substack email. From now on, the way we're working call-ins, just to make the show a little easier for us to plan, is we're going to have a special half-an-hour sort of Q&A segment at the end of all of our Sunday evening shows. And patrons and paid Substack subscribers will have call-in access to actually talk to us during that Q&A, and we'll, of course, take Super Chat sort of Q&A posts during that time as well. But you do get call-in access to all the Sunday shows, plus the patron-exclusive stream. So we just had a supporter-exclusive live stream last night. That was a fun show where Russell and I explored the possibility of running for the Greens. Russell is still... As Devo, yes.
We are not men. We are Devo.
Yes. Yeah, we were considering running as one person with multiple personalities, like a Fight Club type candidacy under the moniker Devo. And Russell is still thinking about it. He just needs to figure out the other half of his split personality. Maybe you and Courtney could do it. That would be good. It would bring some gender diversity to the ticket. You can't have two white men
and then they'd feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That makes you a bigger threat. I mean, two white men in the Green Party, we wouldn't have a shot anyway. But anyway, if you want to hear that conversation and more from last night, go to patreon.com/do dissidents and sign up. You can also sign up to support the show at dodissidents.substack.com. Paid subscribers there get the same perks as the patrons. So we hope that you all had a good time on the patron show last night. That was a lot of fun. Cool Blue, thank you for the $1.99. Next party switch for Cornell West, the Donner Party. Thank you, Cool Blue.
I just want to say from a friend of the show from the Communist Party, the Duran are geopolitical analysts, and apparently this has got to be a rough name to live with. Apparently, Alistair Crook is a British diplomat. I assumed it was somebody's showbiz name.
Oh, okay. I've heard of the Duran contest,
I assumed they were being satirical, but no. Apparently, this person's name really is Alistair Crook, and they're a former British diplomat. It's a really rough name for a politician, Alistair Crook. But yeah, I guess that's a real guy. That's his real name.
Yeah, that's something. Let's also, while we're plugging our stuff, our producer friend Jake was kind enough to make us a wonderful redirect link, so I don't have to give you that complicated link to our merch store. Now, if you just go to dodissidents.com/merch, you land yourself right here where you could take a look at our beautiful shirts and hoodies. Schmata, schmata, schmata.
Schmata, schmata, schmata.
Yeah, come and get them. Come and get them. Come and get them. Come and get them.
I can't give it away on 7th Avenue.
Can't give it away on 7th Avenue. We got zip-up hoodies. We got pullover hoodies. We got tank tops. We got women's shirts. We've got men's comfort shirts. We have our cartoon logo unisex non-binary shirt. Look at that. How do you like that? That's made by Eileen and Scott Johnson, fans and friends of the show. Beautiful. You can get those merchandise items shipped right to you in time for the holidays. They make lovely gifts, coffee mugs, everything, you name it. So a lot of people have been asking us for a merch store for a long time, and we finally got it together. And so we're excited about that. DoDissidents.com/merch. Get your shit today, folks. That's how we say it. China Shill says, this super chat is dedicated to the brave Mujahideen fighters of Palestine. Thank you, China Shill. Appreciate that. Robert Penner, which GOP will be...
He doesn't only shill for China, apparently.
Right, not just the China Shill. Right, exactly.
He's a diverse shill.
Diverse shill, exactly. Which GOP will be principled on withholding money for foreign wars? Well, in terms of Ukraine, you had some of them, but in terms of Israel, yeah, none. Oh, that's a good point. Actually,
Marjorie Taylor Greene, last week, she's all out there with Code Pink.
Well,
this week, she's all more money for Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I wanted to actually say something that I didn't get a chance to do on last night's stream, but I want to say it on a public stream anyway. Apparently, that $8 billion figure that Biden supposedly sent to Israel, apparently that was a fake story that just was making the rounds on Twitter from some verified accounts. Apparently, that's not true. So I wanted to correct that because we found that out. One of our viewers was kind enough to email us and give us a heads up on that. So I want to correct that because we did misreport that unintentionally, obviously. Think before you type. Thanks for the $9.99. I've seen Christians who don't say anything when Jesus is mocked and insulted openly. Yet if Israel gets merely criticized, they would get angry as if you had insulted their chosen God people. Yeah, I mean, there's... Russell, do you want to take that? You went to Hebrew school.
I mean, the truth is, people don't talk about this a lot, but Jesus borrowed a lot of money.
That's true,
so
yeah.
he left behind a lot of anger, like a lot of people, they're like, yeah, that motherfucker never gave me my $10 back.
Yeah.
So that's part of what's behind that. He very often he would get in too deep with the loan sharks. He'd skip town. So there's a little bit of that there. With Israel, look, with the Christianity thing, I mean, honestly, I think part of the whole ethos of Christianity is to be a misunderstood martyr, right? You're a martyr. You to be abused. It's almost like a badge of pride within the whole ethos of Christianity to be mocked by the non-believers, right? It's part of their whole deal. Whereas with the Israel thing, that gets processed through a whole different channel.
Right.
I mean, that's all about, I mean, for some of these Christians, it's, Israel needs to be there for Jesus to come back.
Right. Right.
And
in terms of Zionism, you talked about Hebrew school and how Hebrew school is basically the Hebrew language and Zionism. And so,
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but those Christians don't go through that process.
Right. But he was talking about, okay. Now I understand. That's right.
He's talking about Christians.
Talking about Christians. Exactly.
He's talking about Christians that'll freak out about Israel, but let you make fun of Jesus. I think they process that two different ways. And I mean, this was another, going back to my recent journeys, this was another insight that I got because, I'm going through the Roman Forum and all that, but then I went to the Christian catacombs where you go down underground, there's 7 stories down of bones,
right?
Burials. And, you hear stories about all these Christian martyrs. And, to the Romans, who were a very rational, orderly, logical people, Christians must have been terrifying. I mean, that must have been terrifying. Like, for a people like that, to have these people who are like, want to be killed, like to be martyrs, right? Or see like a glory in that. It must have been terrifying. But looking at all that Christian art and Christian history, that was something that actually really hit me, how much this almost fetishization of abuse and martyrdom is so core to the Christian identity. that that makes sense, that a lot of Christians would be, would turn the other cheek, right, when you're abusing Jesus, because this is what Jesus suffered, right? He was abused by the crowd. That's what it is to be a true Christian. Whereas Israel is a whole other thing, I think, for most people, for most Christians.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sabby Sabs just reported, says Master Yoda on Rumble. Thanks for the donation. Sabby Sabs just reported that Cenk Uygur filed in the Democrat primary for POTUS.
Oh, he really did.
Wow.
I thought he can't run. I thought he was born in Turkey.
Yeah. Maybe he can run. He just can't serve if he's elected. Some people do that. They run anyway, even if they're not allowed to serve. If you win the election, I guess you just can't serve. Will Cenk debate Marianne? Will they debate Extra Bullet 2024? Deeply unserious. Wow. We could have used that news coming in. That could have cheered us up. They could have made the show a little brighter,
Yep, I just looked it up. Yeah, he was born in Istanbul.
Yeah, he's born. No, I know that for a fact.
No, I'm just making sure that's absolutely true. Yeah,
absolutely.
No,
Yeah,
Istanbul,
absolutely
yeah.
true. Yeah. No, that's true. And
Istanbul
that would have been
was
something
once
great.
Constantinople.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah,
we're gonna do that number every. I got to put that on the soundboard now.
I like that
running.
song. You should put that on the soundboard. That's good. You should do that whenever his name comes up. Yeah. That's a nice bouncy tune too. There we go. Pick things up around here. Indeed.
It's very cheerful.
Yes. I love that song. Bonzo Beans, thanks for the $1. Okay, here's an interesting one. Yesterday marked the 33rd anniversary of the Nariah testimony, a.k.a. the incubator lie. Never forget to be skeptical of the most shocking boogeymen stories.
We were talking about that. Yeah.
High stakes equals heavy burden of proof. I assume that was the rest of your chat there that just bled off the screen. But yeah, Russell and I were talking about that on the phone earlier. In fact, Russell, you brought that up. So do you want to just... I mean, there's not much to say because at this point there's just not... You just don't know. Like, yes,
we're not
be skeptical, but you have to be. Yeah, you have to be skeptical at this point, obviously.
Based on the history of these kinds of claims, and that's exactly what I thought of: the incubator babies, and Keaton. When we were talking about it, was mentioning the Viagra stories about what was it, Gaddafi?
Gaddafi
claims about the Viagra.
They gave troop.
So. I'm not going to say it didn't happen. I will say this in terms of what they're claiming. I feel comfortable based on the history and based on who we're talking about and who we're dealing with here. I would almost guarantee that these stories are greatly exaggerated, if true at all. There's probably some truth, but I would imagine it's more the atrocities of war kind of things rather than what they're describing, this absolutely over the top kind of thing. And they made a statement about it and said, no, we don't do that. They said in terms of civilians, they don't consider settlers civilians. So the people who came and took Palestinian houses in those territories, they consider them combatants. They feel, well, you moved in there, you made yourself part of the war. So that's how they look at that. But in terms of the stories of rape and beheading of children, they deny it. It could be true. If it is true, I would very much doubt it's true on the scale that we're hearing it, which of course in no way justifies it, in no way says, well, only a little bit of war crimes. War crimes are war crimes, and anyone who's guilty of it is guilty of it. But given the history of, from the Gulf of Tonkin on down, look at who's telling us these stories.
Right,
so they're not the most credible people.
Absolutely. Long story short, where the real money from the podcast is made. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Eric Rousseau, Jesus built my hot rod ministry. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. And Jesus Christ Pose, Soundgarden, rest in peace, Chris Cornell, CC. Yeah, Chris Cornell was one of the all-time great singers. I mean, that guy was just an incredible vocalist. And if you watched him sing, he didn't even really look like he was trying. Like, he had this real heavy fucking, like, roar of a sound, and like there's like that. You didn't see his veins bulging. He was an amazing talent, for sure. All right, folks, let's get to the Israel-Palestine segments of the night. There's a lot to do. There was breaking news today. This broke on Fox News. This video is a little jumpy because we caught it just before we went live, so forgive the tech if it jumps around a little bit. But this broke on Fox News that 300,000 troops are set to go into Gaza as Israel is prepping a ground invasion. Let's take a look.
The Israeli Defense Force, IDF, is now readying their forces and stockpiling supplies near the Gaza Strip. And as a full on-ground invasion, we are told, is imminent. Israel says 300,000 plus reservists have been called up to fight and are nearing the border with Gaza, setting up what will be a historic theater in military terms.
A historic theater indeed. A historic theater. Now, you watching here might think that Fox News was having some sort of technical difficulty since 2/3 of the screen is black. But no, that's Gaza at 7 p.m. You notice it's pitch black because there's no electricity. There's no lighting. So they're going to send 300,000 soldiers with state-of-the-art military weapons into an open-air concentration camp with no food, no water, no electricity. You tell me how this is going to end, folks. You tell me what's coming. What's coming here is a wholesale slaughter. There's no way to sugarcoat this. There's no way to tell you it's going to be any different. That's what's going on here. And how much time are we supposed to spend condemning the attack on Israel? Like, how much time? Like, let's actually like play your game. Okay, let's say, okay, yes, we condemn it, right? For how long do you want us to say that over and over again as Israel prepares to move in with 300,000 people on an open air prison on a concentration camp with no food, no water, and no power? They are getting ready to commit a genocide right now on a population of 2.2 million people, half of whom are under the age of 18. What do you want us to be saying about this? What are you talking about here? This is deranged. This is perverse. Anyway, I'll have similar things to say, but I just want to say 300,000 troops with U.S. military backing going here to a population with no electricity. It's just unbelievable. It's just incredible, the coverage that you're seeing here. It's going to be quite the theater of urban warfare. No, it's going to be a slaughter, is what it's going to be.
Caitlin Johnston made a great point in her article on this today. She said, people who are tweeting their support for Israel should really start thinking about their excuses now, because there's about to be a genocide, and you're going to have to take responsibility for having publicly supported that later on, because this is going to go down in history as one of the great atrocities ever committed against people if they actually follow through on what they're describing here. Because, as you say, I mean, how does this end? Right? You send 300,000 heavily armed troops into a population of what, 2 million?
Right.
Mostly unarmed people who have had their food and water and electricity cut off. I mean, that's, and you're seeing a lot of people, almost every person, every Zionist I see saying anything about this makes the point of saying, you can disagree with Israel's policies, how I disagree with them. Okay, so when did you disagree with them? Because I've never seen you say shit about that. I never saw you say shit to speak up for the Palestinians before. Maybe you'd have an ounce of credibility if you had been constantly talking over the last decades about the treatment of the Palestinians, but you didn't say a fucking word about that until you needed to show that you're reasonable when this happened. No, I have problems with the policy, but that's no excuse, right? Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, fuck you. First of all, I don't even buy that. I don't even believe them. I call bullshit, because if you disagreed with the policy, you wouldn't put it that way. If you understood what the policy was, you wouldn't just say, yeah, I have problems with it.
They disagree the way that libs disagree with people not having health care.
Right.
Very, very passively from their couches.
No, but that's what I mean. If you understood Gaza to be a concentration camp, you wouldn't just say, I disagree with it, or yeah, I have problems with it. You would condemn
complicated.
That. You would
it's
condemn that if you
situation.
actually knew what the fuck you were talking about, right?
Right.
But they don't. They don't know anything. They don't know fucking
I can't believe all the lies I'm seeing about Israel, but they don't tell you what they are. What are they? What lies are you talking about exactly? That these people are in a concentration camp? I mean, at best, even people who are, mostly on the side of Israel are admitting that it's an open-air prison. Even the fucking mainstream media is admitting that Gaza is an open-air prison. So what lies are you talking about? That's a lie? On what grounds do you claim that it's a lie? And we'll get more into this when we show the more extended version of the footage I took at the rally, where I spent a lot of time recording what the Zionists had to say. It's just incredible to me, because at one time, the facts, pre-internet, the facts of what's going on in Israel were just not as widely available. It's incredible to me that they still pull this line. Like, they make it sound like Gaza is a country where people are just living there.
Right.
And
exactly.
choosing not to improve their condition because, and the underlying implication is they're animals. I mean, not even implication. They use that word, animals.
Right.
Like,
they use
but that's the idea.
Use
like
that word, YouTube, in case you give a shit about it when it happens. In case you care, right? Because I don't know to what extent big tech cares about this. It's apparently perfectly okay to be as vile and racist towards the people in Gaza as you want. But in case you're enforcing your guidelines about that, that was him quoting the Israelis, who we're all supposed to be waving their flags around now. They casually call them animals. Yes, not us.
And you'll see that on the footage I took more than once. You'll see them calling them that. The implication is not even implication. I mean, it's straight out like they're backwards. Their culture is backwards. And that's why their conditions are like this. It's not that we have blockaded them. It's that they are animals. Yeah. And so you would think, if you don't know any better, the way that they talk about it, you would think that Gaza is a country with independence and the ability to make decisions for itself. You would never know what it actually is.
Exactly. And, our pal Danny Haifong replied to my tweet when I quoted this video, and I said, this is going to be a slaughter. This is over. The world has failed these people, and that's it. And he mentioned, we thought the same thing in Afghanistan and Vietnam. Well, that's different. Those were countries, and they had the terrain.
They weren't walled in.
They weren't walled in. They weren't deprived of electricity and water and food, and they had terrain on their side. Afghanistan is a notoriously difficult terrain for outside occupiers to come and take over. Same thing in Vietnam, right?
Right.
The jungle.
Right.
This is not. These people are sitting ducks here. That's what they are, and they're going to be treated like that. And there's nothing anybody's going to do to step in and stop it. I just don't see that happening. So anyway, let's go on to another story here. This is related. This broke today. This was a phenomenal exchange between Max Blumenthal, the Gray Zone's Max Blumenthal, and State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller. I'm sorry, was he? No, he's not the State. No, he was the Defense Department spokesperson or State Department. I think he's with the State Department. Sorry, I have my notes mixed up there. But he was taking questions from the press, and unfortunately for him, a real journalist actually showed up this morning. And so here's Max Blumenthal confronting Matthew Miller. Go ahead.
Yeah, in March, you condemned Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, for calling for wiping the Palestinian village of Huwara off the map. This week, we've heard the defense minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant, declare that he's fighting human animals in Gaza as Israel cuts off the gas, the water, and the electricity. We've heard Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, declare that all hiding places will be turned to rubble in a besieged coastal enclave where there are 1 million children. We've heard Ariel Kalner, who is a member of Knesset from the ruling Likud party, call for a Nakba 2.0, which is essentially a call for genocide and the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians as 850 are dead in Gaza. So what do you think of that rhetoric in light of your previous condemnation?
Let me say a few things about that. Number one, we expect, as we said, that Israel will conduct its operations in accordance with international law. Number two...
Stop. Let me play this again.
We expect, as we said, that Israel will conduct its operations in accordance with international law.
We expect that Israel...
Well, that'll be a first.
I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The ignorance that these people just rely upon to say these things is astounding. They say this because they know that they are speaking to a brainwashed country that is completely ignorant of the way Israel conducts its business. We expect...
World's most moral army.
Yeah, the world's most moral army. We expect that they will conduct this operation in accordance with international law. Fucking unbelievable liar. You just go up there and fucking lie like that with a clear conscience. Like, this is just unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. And, you know, you look at a thing like this, you look at the media coverage, you look at the way the politicians talk about this, Democrats, Republicans. You know, this is something that we don't really talk about very much on this show. We tend to not dabble in identity politics and things like that. But this is just abject racism. It really is. That's what this is. And you get a sense when you see people talk like this, you know, I'm not going to ever know what it's like to be a racial minority in my home country and have to experience life in that way and have to look through the lens of a racial minority at a society that is just not concerned with understanding who I am or giving a fuck about who I am or what my concerns are for seeing things from my point of view. That's what this feels like here. It feels like you're talking to people, whether it's, you know, masters of war like this guy or just, you know, man on the street Democrats, man on the street Republicans or media people. You're talking to people who seem completely ignorant and completely uninterested in learning anything about this. It's like you're dealing with a mass of people who just doesn't give a shit about this issue. They don't care enough to learn about it. They don't care enough to know anything about it. And that's because the people being victimized here are these people who the Israeli defense minister just said are human animals. And that's what this is. This is just absolute bigotry. And you see how powerful and how prevalent that actually is. You see how racism still is so alive and fucking well, because that's what this is. That's why you cannot break through here. That's why you cannot break through here, because there is broad-based, bipartisan racism towards these people. It's just fucking obscene.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the famous Ukraine moment. This is amazing to see this happening with people who look like us. Look, you could never do to white people what they've done to the people in Yemen. You couldn't even begin to do that to white people. So yeah, I mean there's an element of that. I think for people playing these international geopolitical games, it really comes down to who has money and power. File this under the worst person you know made a great point. Andrew Tate just had a little snippet that went kind of viral where he said, I don't know if this is entirely true, but I think there's some truth to it. He said, there's no racism for rich people. If you're rich Asian or rich Arab or rich white, nobody cares. You're rich. That's for the poor. Racism is for the poor. That's how they keep you divided, and they keep you from going after what they have. Amongst themselves, they don't care. They're not walking around. It's about how much money you have. So if the Palestinians were a strong and wealthy people, they'd get treated very differently, right? I mean, there is that. I mean, I think there is a racial element, but there's that element as well.
Well, but that element, the reason they're not a strong and wealthy people is because they happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time when a bunch of Eastern Europeans wanted their, supposed land back.
Sure.
Right?
But we'll kiss the Saudis' ass all
well,
day.
The Saudis,
that's the point I'm making. Like, it's not that we won't kiss a brown ass. It depends on what cards you're holding.
No, but in this case, it's absolutely a sense that has set in over the past, 75 years at least, that these people just do not count because of who they are.
Absolutely. Well, and because Israel is our proxy in the region.
Right. Exactly. All right, we keep going here because don't forget, he has a few things he wants to say about this. He's not done. So far, he opens with, well, we expect they're going to do this in accordance with international law, like sending 300,000 troops into an open-air prison with no electricity. Let's hear him go on. He's not done, and neither is Max, thankfully.
Number two, there are going to be a number of statements made over the course of this conflict, and when we have disagreements with them, we will make those known privately.
Oh, you're going to make those known privately? Okay. So
we're gonna have a sit down.
Yeah, wall-to-wall coverage about how, we all have to pray for Israel, unite behind Israel, stand with Israel, condemn the attacks, wall-to-wall. We'll make that as public as fucking possible. But when they start killing women and children, we're going to keep it behind closed doors because that's the polite thing to do. Do you see how fucking just evil this is? And do you see how nobody in a position to do fuck all about it is going to?
Well, when you subject yourself to this kind of media and these kinds of narratives, it conditions you to accept all this as the reasonable point of view, right? Of course, with our allies, of course, the United States, if Israel gets out of line, will settle it in a civilized way, and we'll call them, and they'll stop. I mean, this is what the brain dead viewers of this kind of media take in, and that's why having somebody like Max in that room is so novel, because the press corps normally that would get that kind of access have been chosen for their willingness not to challenge the madness of what he's saying. I honestly don't know how Max keeps getting into these kinds of spaces. He got into that Maddow thing. I don't know how they don't see Gray Zone and say rejected.
Yeah. Well, thank God he got. I mean, you understand how sick you have to be to actually absorb what this guy is saying and say, yeah, that makes sense. We're going to address it privately. We expect them not to commit war crimes. We expect them to comply with international law. Bullshit. But when they do commit war crimes, we're going to address it behind closed doors. We're not going to make a big public thing about it.
Well, because for people who follow this shit, they just need you to give them a justification for investing in these institutions. Like they're not going to dig any deeper than what you say. So you just got to give them the words, right? Yep. No, I was listening, and he said if Israel crossed the line, they're going to pick up the phone.
They're going to give him a call.
They're going to give him a call. No, they're not just going to let him run willy-nilly over the Palestinians. No, we don't. This is America. We don't do that.
We don't do that. Right, exactly. All right, so he said he had a few things, not a couple of things. He's got more.
Number three, though, let me just speak to this. Number three, some of the questions I'm getting today do seem to ignore the fact that Israel just had hundreds of its citizens killed, people who were taken hostage, and pretend that Israel shouldn't be able to conduct any kind of. Let me just say, because
Palestinian children have been killed? Do you acknowledge that? Will you even acknowledge that?
Let me finish.
80 Palestinian children killed
this
week.
Again,
babies. Do you acknowledge that?
You asked a question. I will answer the question.
Okay, that's my question.
So I'm going to start by answering the previous question that was interrupted. I will say some of the questions seem to pretend that Israel should not be able to conduct operations to defend itself and hold accountable the terrorists who killed civilians.
Okay, first of all of the coverage that we've seen has ignored the fact that what happens, and it was horrible what happens. I do not condone what happens. I do not celebrate or glorify in any way the death of civilians, right? It's a horrible thing. It's a downward spiral. This is only going to get worse. I agree with all of that. Okay. But all of the coverage ignored that what happened before that is pretty much a less exaggerated version of what's going to happen after it, right? I mean, now it's forget it. Now I don't think there's going to be a Gaza much longer. But if you look at the map that Ryan Knight shared and several other people shared, what's been happening for the past several decades is a systematic genocide of the Palestinian people. And none of any of the coverage that we've seen has acknowledged that. So he's saying, well, I don't see questions. There are some people asking questions in here as if Israel wasn't just attacked. Everybody's acting as if the people of Gaza have not been under constant attack.
Well, that was there was that clip from the BBC. Are we playing that? We're not doing that one, right?
Don't have that one. Maybe we'll have that one Friday.
It was the Palestinian diplomat, I think, and he was on the BBC, and he said, because they asked him.
Oh yeah, we're definitely doing that Friday. Yes, definitely.
They asked him about the atrocities, and he said, "Well, why don't you ever ask about the atrocities that they commit? Because what just happened, this happens on a daily basis to the people in Gaza, but you never ask about that. And you don't ask the Israelis to justify themselves when they do those things. You only ask us to justify ourselves when these things happen."
Exactly right. And the other point that he makes here about how Israel has a right to do their operation, we're not saying like they're going to do an operation as if Gaza is not an operation. Gaza is one big Israeli operation. There's been an Israeli operation going on for decades.
That is not Israel's policy. That is not our policy. It is something that we would vehemently disagree with. Israel has the right to secure its country the way any country does. It has the right to defend itself against terrorism. It has the right to hold terrorists accountable. And I will say, ultimately, the Hamas terrorists who launched these operations, there is no one who has more disregard for Palestinian civilian life than those terrorists. Because those terrorists, let me finish.
Sure there is.
Well,
go ahead. You want to keep going?
Those terrorists launched this activity. Those terrorists, again, we seem to have a lot of new people. Those terrorists
launched this. A lot of new people here today. A lot of journalists here today. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how all these journalists got into the building. Usually I come out here and it's a bunch of fucking college boys, from fucking Georgetown who lick my balls for money and access. Right, exactly. I don't know where all these journalists got in here. A lot of new people in here today who actually give a shit about what they're talking about.
And that'll be the last time.
Yeah.
Activity, knowing that there would be retaliation, knowing that Israel would have to defend itself as any country did, knowing that it would lead to the unfortunate loss of civilian lives by Palestinians, and they did anyway. Let me go ahead.
That's amazing.
So baby killing is okay here.
Why can't you acknowledge baby killing is okay here?
We always mourn the loss of civilian life. It is an unfortunate circumstance every time it happens. And as I just said, the Hamas terrorists who launched this terrorist attack.
I'm sorry. I know we're not supposed to keep. I can't wait. Oh, it's an unfortunate circumstance when a Palestinian baby is killed. It's terrorism when an Israeli baby is killed. Well, do you see what? Do people not understand what they're seeing here? I feel like Walter Sobchak in The Big Lebowski. The whole world gone crazy.
Well, because the whole framing, and we'll see this in some of the footage I got of the Israelis, of the Zionists. They frame it as the Israelis are only responding to provocation, right? Their actions are defensive, whereas the Palestinian actions are aggressive. I mean, that's obviously
which is
that's,
obviously
you have to be completely ignorant of what's going on there, which most people are. Which,
they
as
took
you
their
say-
land, they
as
put
you
them
say,
in a
that's
pen,
what
and they started killing them off.
Right.
Yeah.
And like we showed on the Patreon show, I mean, literally, you got people there getting kicked out of their house and settlers moving into their house.
Yep.
Literally. And most Americans, because they don't see that. And the clip we showed, that really shows you how the tide is turning. Like now this had that clip. And now this is very milquetoast.
Yeah.
That is not the gray zone. So
I didn't even know they were still around.
When they're, I knew they were around. When they're showing things like that, I mean, that says a lot about how they're losing control of the narrative. Like this kind of shit, if there's a bright side here, most people aren't buying this anymore. They used to, but they don't anymore. Not most people.
I certainly hope you're right about that. And we'll show some of these clips on Friday, Friday morning, that BBC clip that you're talking about. There's a lot of stuff. If there is a show Friday morning, folks, they gave JB a warning for talking, about this. They demonetized the channel. This is why I'm saying, if you're not on our Substack, even if it's for free, and if you're not subscribed to our Rumble channel, I don't know what you're doing, because we are in an emergency situation here where if you think the censorship around Ukraine is bad, this shit starts getting worse as it's going to. You ain't seen nothing yet. We are dealing with an out-of-control government, an out-of-control network of very rich people with a lot of power and no conscience whatsoever. If they are taking their orders from this guy, they can disappear all of us like that. So if you're not on our Substack, you need to get on our fucking Substack. It's free, okay? It's fucking free. Rumble too. Rumble.com/do.
Look, if you want to give us some money, we'll take it. It's all right. We won't say no.
Yeah.
But if you're pressed, you don't have a lot right now, it's okay. You can.
If you're
sign up
dragging
for
your
free.
feet on this, you can't be dragging your feet on this anymore. It's free. We're not asking you for any money. Like I said, if you can, that'd be great. But it's free, and it's important because this is going to start getting worse. What did Tucker Carlson say a couple weeks ago? He says, "Oh, you think it's going to be a nice little election, Biden and Trump, and maybe one of them will win." No. You see what's going on now? Now they have World War III brewing on two burners. It's now cooking on two burners. They just turned another burner on. They had Ukraine. The money stalled out for Ukraine. They had a little hiccup getting that going, right? Now they got the other burner. Now they got Iran, right? Mm-hmm. Russia's other ally. You think these are joke times? These are not joke times, okay?
No.
Buckle up.
No, listen. I was not kidding when I said I took these trips back to back within a year. I took these bucket list trips because I'm not confident we're going to live in a world where you can do what I just did for very much longer. That is why I did it in such a compressed time and didn't just say, well, I just did this. I'll wait on this. I'm not confident that a year from now you can do what I just did.
Not if this guy has his way.
Exactly.
Knowing that it would produce the loss of not just direct Israeli lives, who they took in their incursions across the border, but also the loss of Palestinian civilian life. They ultimately bear the responsibility for those acts. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go. I'm gonna ask. I just did do that. I would ask you not to talk over your colleague. Go ahead.
Will you call on Israel not to kill civilians?
Yes, great.
I will ask you not to. I'll ask you not to talk over your colleague. Unbelievable. God bless Max Blumenthal for getting in there. I mean, it's just incredible. Just really incredible.
I'm honestly surprised that they let the great. I mean, I guess they must have to. I don't know what their rules are around press access. I mean, obviously he has a press pass, but do they just let in anyone with a press pass? I'm always surprised that they let Max into these rooms.
Yeah, well, this is an area where he's obviously very, very qualified to speak, but he wasn't saying
that's
anything.
not the question.
Right.
He's too qualified for them to let him in.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Let's take some super chats here, folks. Got somebody just said I just subscribed on Rumble. That's good to hear. Thank you guys very much. Well, what did we say? What have we been saying this whole time? You know, very important. Bonzo Beans, thanks for the $1. Shmuley will be President RFK's peace envoy to the Middle East. Yeah. Fucking Shmuley. Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. Of all times for this to happen, like I said, it seems superficial, and it is to make a big thing out of that timing. But just in terms of like everybody in our space who was even contemplating, building some momentum behind RFK to have this happen right as he makes that switch.
No, seriously. When you've lost Pasta, you get who do you got left?
And by the way, we got to give props to Pasta. Involves Pasta. When Cornell put out a lousy tweet, Nick Cruz tweeted back at him saying it was a horrific tweet. And what did Russell say? Russell says, that's fucking integrity. Pasta, same thing. It takes a lot of fucking integrity to call out somebody who you invest in. And Pasta demonstrated that
and that you've publicly been defending for a year.
Exactly. And this, this is what has us pissed off about the Marianne people, is that they don't do the same thing, right?
Right.
They don't do the same thing.
They don't do that in the look, not to get too deep into this, but you picked a completely absurd candidate to begin with. And then as these things came out about staff abuse, which is, a particularly sensitive issue in a labor-oriented space, none of you ever really wanted to litigate that. It didn't make you change your mind. You didn't want to, maybe back off on that. I mean, that says that your judgment is not to be trusted. You are telling people that you will use your platform to point the people who listen to you and watch you in a fucking completely ridiculous direction. It's ridiculous to begin with, but then you're not going to look under the hood to make sure that what you're encouraging is really not a psycho with a 30-year history of abusing staff. Like, what does that say about you? Why should anyone trust what you say about anything else after that?
Right. Exactly. Folks, we're at 991 in the YouTube chat. Big crowd here. Can we get 1,000 people in here tonight? Can you guys hit that like button, please?
We were over 1,000.
Oh, we were? Oh, cool. Good to know. Hit that subscribe button while you're here, folks.
We had like 20 RFK stands. They just left.
Yeah, right, exactly. I thought those were the Marianne people who just left. Yeah. Think before you type. Thanks for the $9.99. Nelson Mandela and AMC freedom fighters were called terrorists during the apartheid South African regime. Yes, by the U.S., Israel, and Britain. Same playbooks being used against the Palestinian people. Indeed. Long story short, thanks for the $2. Russ, Old New York, once New Amsterdam. Dogs for the win.
Very true.
Says, it's easy, condemn both. Look, I said on the last show, look, I'm a parent, okay? The thought of anything happening to my kids is just absolutely sickening. It's unthinkable, right? No civilian deserves to be brutalized or kidnapped or killed, or, a child has no responsibility for what's going on in the world around them. So that's obviously horrible. I said all violence is tragic. All war is obscene. I think war is a failure of humanity. That's exactly the phrase I used last time. I stand by that 100%. Norm Finkelstein compared these to slave revolts in the antebellum South, which was the comparison that I happened to use last time I was on the air. And so, was Nat Turner a terrorist? Do we study Nat Turner?
He talked about John Brown. He talked about John Brown. That was interesting.
He talked about John Brown. Absolutely.
Like he literally thought he was God's messenger sent to end slavery.
Exactly. Right. So that's how I describe violence. I don't glorify violence. I'm not. I don't have a warrior spirit. Some people may think I am too much of a pacifist. I'm not necessarily a pacifist, but I don't believe violence is to be glorified or celebrated. I think all violence is to be mourned, and all violence represents a failure of human beings to interact with each other the way we are somewhat uniquely capable, right, as a species. So I don't celebrate or glorify anyone's murder ever. But, and if it hurts to hear me say but, maybe just I'll say and. When we study slave revolts in the antebellum South, we don't think of the rebelling slaves as terrorists. We think of them as people who had no other choice. They could either revolt or they can rot to death as slaves, rot to death as prisoners, as captives.
Right.
That's the position they are in.
Right.
They had no other choice but to simply rot to death in an open-air concentration camp.
Right.
That's it. That's just the reality. Like, you know, I mean, this language of condemning, excusing, you know, I mean, to me, that's now you're getting away from the actual politics of the situation, which is in this timeline, there is cause and there is effect, and this was the inevitable outcome of what's been happening.
That's it. That's it.
That's
Whether you think it's right or wrong, it's almost beside the point. You know, you don't, and this is a point that Norm made also. He addressed this, like judging the action, and he said, "Hey, you know, more or less, he said, I'm not in that position,
right?
And I can't judge what I would do if I were in that position, and nobody can." Nobody can.
His parents were in that position.
Knowing
his parents were Holocaust survivors.
Yeah. Knowing myself, I got a pretty good idea. So, you know, nobody's in a position to judge who has not been brutalized like that. You know, Norm talked at length about, hey, you have people who their entire lives, they've never seen the world outside of that little strip of land.
Yep.
Literally, their entire lives, they've never left that little strip of land. So what would you do to get out?
Right. Yep. All right, let's get to that. Actually, we have some more Super Chats, so let's knock out a few more of these since it's been a little while. Think before you type. Thank you for the $4.99. Fox News saying theater reminds of the Zionist Israelis going to the Hill of Shame where they would watch bombings and the murder of Palestinians. Yeah, the theater line is, I mean, that is part of the propaganda. That's why people can't escape this. Right. And that's why it feels to me, like I said, I will never know what it's like to be a racial minority, but I would imagine it feels something like this. Like you're trying to communicate such a basic truth that's so obvious to you and so morally sound that nobody cares to fucking listen to. Right. Like that's what I can only imagine what it's like to be black in this country, but I feel like that's probably a component of it. And, you know, people can correct me if I'm wrong or speaking out of turn there, but you know, I'm only speculating. I can only speculate, but that's a speculation I have because it's impossible to. It seems like it's impossible to appeal to people whose judgments you generally trust or people who you generally like. Right, the great monologue that Atticus Finch gives in The Mockingbird to his daughter. He says, you know, look. There are people who we care a lot about, who we like a lot, who are going to be saying some very terrible things about us because we're not going to be able to get through to them. He took we're not going to be able to break whatever it is in their minds that forces them to see things a certain way. We're not going to be able to break through it. It's going to be this really scary experience because you're going to be in a situation where no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how hard you try to appeal to their better judgment and their reasoning and their moral conscience, it's just not going to happen. You know? All right. Franklin Worsham, thanks for the $4.99. My sister went to grad school with Matthew Miller. She said he was a total vampire creep. I believe it. I believe that. Wow. Small world, as they say. 2 degrees of separation from Matthew Miller. Safe to say Americans overall are sociopathic?
I wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. No.
I would say that the overall culture encourages sociopathy.
I mean, this is just literally this is Just like, I mean, this is where, you get another comparison to this is why this just feels like racism. This is just as racism is. It's fucking ignorance. This is just ignorance. Most people are just ignorant. Kurt Metzger sat in on the Pasta interview, and, I'm not saying this to beat up on Kurt. He's a comic. He would be the first to admit he's not an expert on the issue, so he was a little bit of the odd man out there. But it was good that he was there because he was kind of providing this everyman perspective where he was saying, I didn't know that it was a concentration. I didn't know that. I knew there were checkpoints. I knew there were certain goods they couldn't import and stuff like that. But when you hear that, you feel like, okay, you're a second class citizen, but you're a citizen. They're really not citizens. They are prisoners.
Right. Exactly. And people don't realize.
And people don't know that. People
They
just don't know that.
even look. This is what I don't understand. We'll get into it when we show the video. These are Israelis who have been in the fucking Israeli army who are fucking from Israel. How the fuck are you talking about it the way American Jews do, as if they live in a country
right
where they have options?
Right.
I have one of them talking about, and this was part of the little rough cut I threw together for the other night. So some people already saw that, where she says, if you want a country, we can sit down at the table and talk political issues. Like, you don't know better than that.
Yeah, it's just
that they're not empowered in that way. Like, you fuck it. You're from there. You were in the army. You know what condition. What the fuck are you even talking about?
Yeah. Yep. Indeed. Long story short, thanks for the $2. Did you see Max on Tim Pool's show? No, I did not. What was that? Was that recent? That must have been something to see. But I guess. I mean, I would be interested.
That would be a very interesting.
Hey, you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Max Blumenthal and RFK have that sit down that was promised. Right now that RFK is an independent, can we get that? Going? I'd like to see that. Maybe we should start, generating some buzz around that.
He's not going to do that.
Of course not. But I think we should maybe try and hold him to that now that he's an independent. How about that?
RFK only likes to talk to people who are not able to challenge his bullshit.
Right. Exactly. Reality Revolution, thanks for the $5. The world won't be destroyed by the evildoers, but by the people who watch them and do nothing. Palestinians are Semites. Free Palestine now.
That was actually something look, I'm not an expert on this either. I've got to look into some of this. Not that it matters, but Kim Iverson, got into a back and forth about, the Jews being descended from the region, with somebody claiming that no, most of the people in Israel today are Jews that were expelled from the surrounding areas, so they're actually from that region. The Eastern Europeans are the minority now. And she actually said, based on genetic studies, more of the Arabs are descended from the original Israeli Jews, because they were all like Jews that converted when the region went Muslim. So like more of them are actually from that original Jewish Israeli bloodline. I have to look into that. I don't know if it's true.
Interesting. Derek says, with the exception of children, which Israelis are civilians, every Israeli 18 or older serves in the military. I know they have compulsory service there. Yep. I know they do.
Yep. I went to high school with this Israeli girl, and it was inconceivable to me, because when she graduated high school, she was going back to Israel to do her service.
Right.
Like as a point of like ethics. Like she was not planning on moving back there, but she was going to go there to do her duty.
Wow. Chance of the Muldaya, thank you for the $2, but I have to do a bunch of clicking and typing. All right, well, good luck on that. Thank you. Thank you for the $2. Let's get the singing bowl out for Big Cat Corner. $49.99.
Snap.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I mean, you're a penny under, but we'll let it slide this time.
We'll let it slide. We'll round up.
Oh, no. It's not the singing bowl anymore.
Oh, it's the cowbell. That's right. The cowbell.
That's right.
Don't want to think I'm worst case scenario, but what kind of impact would you foresee here in the U.S. From Michigan? Also, love the JOO crew. Well, thank you, Big Cat's Corner. What do you mean? What? So don't want to think on worst case scenario. What kind of impact would you foresee here in the U.S.?
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
You mean a third world war? Is that what you're talking about? I'm assuming that's what the question is. I mean, I hate to misunderstand your question for just a generous donation, but I think that's what you're talking about. Look, all bets are off, man. All bets are off. This is why that video that we put out with Tucker's got like 22,000 views. It's one of our most watched videos ever. Because that strikes a chord.
I didn't even know that.
It caught a few waves. Yeah, it's doing pretty well. And nobody else caught it except us. We were the only people in the space that picked up on that speech. But one of the reasons it resonated so much with me is because he says these are extremely serious times. There are very, very dark forces, very dark anti-human forces who have been unleashed upon the world right now, and there is no telling what will happen. We're heading into an election year where the establishment is feeling more vulnerable than ever. They're feeling much more vulnerable than they did in 2016 when they lost. That's what people have to understand. In 2016, they were vulnerable, but they didn't feel it. They had tremendous hubris.
They didn't realize how vulnerable they were.
They didn't realize they were vulnerable until 9:30 p.m. on election night when Trump took the lead in Florida, and then they realized they fucked up and they had reason to be worried. But they were arrogant. They were sitting pretty that year. Oh, right. Trump is just a clown. Hillary's going to walk away with it. At which point all this shit probably would have been happening 7 years ago.
That's okay. It's not, it doesn't warm the cockles of my heart the way videos of Hillary voters crying does. But the video of Rachel Maddow talking about all the states that Hillary is going to bring along with her in her massive victory, that one can cheer me up if I'm in the doldrums.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And then there was the other one where she was talking about how all the states that Trump could win and still lose the election. That was another one.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope that is a satisfactory answer to your question there.
I mean,
we're living in a time where they are feeling vulnerable, and when they are feeling vulnerable, they have ways of getting 2-3 steps in front of you.
My answer is the country is on the verge of collapse, and I see it at this moment. The economy, the political system, the social arrangements, it's one big fucking house of cards just waiting for just the tink that's going to make the whole thing come down. I think the country is hanging by a thread. I think we're on the verge of massive social, economic, and political collapse.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Jake, for fielding this follow-up question. See, that's what a good producer does. They field the follow-up, even if it's not a super chat, and start. So with Gaza being erased, and then for another 199, you said yes, potential World War III. Apology for non-context. No, that's okay. Look, the way this gets to World War III is Israel goes all out on Gaza. Iran retaliates. We hit
among
Iran,
others,
and
Hezbollah.
That's it. Yeah,
that's
it.
The surrounding countries do a 73 war thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're sliding into World War III. It's just
they're not going to stop until they get it. They're not going to fucking stop this until they get it. That's what you have to understand. You know, I want to have Anish Shivani back on the show because he predicted that all this shit would happen. I mean, not specifically, but he said Biden wins the 2020 election because Anish is a leftist. I mean, he's pretty hardcore. People who've been following this show for a while know him because we've had him on for a lot of election nights. And since we've gotten a bigger audience, we've only had him on maybe once or twice. But he wrote an op-ed published in American Greatness, right-wing outlet. Victor David Hansen, I think, is the editor there.
Oh, yeah.
Saying that Trump was the lesser evil. And he published that the week before the November election and got a ton of shit for it from all his left-wing friends. And he said, no, you watch. Biden's going to be worse on the border. Check. He's going to be worse on the environment. Check. And you're going to have an out-of-control war machine. Check. So he had everything right.
Yep,
so we should really have him back on. Yeah.
Yep. Have him back on for the victory lap.
Indeed. Think before you type. 199. Israel West hate freedom when it doesn't suit them. Yep. Of course. Absolutely. All right, folks. Let's get to this. Let's get to this Norm and Pasta segment here. So, folks. On the Jimmy Dore Show, Craig Pasta Jardula, our friend, who's been doing a very good job as fill-in host over there, booked the best guest you could possibly book to talk about the events of the past week. Not only is he the best guest you could possibly book, but it was the ballsiest pick because, you know, an interview with Norm is an adventure, as we know. Yes. He's a wonderful guy. I admire the hell out of him. He is not the easiest guy to interview, but Pasta did a phenomenal job.
It is appropriate that he lives on Coney Island because it is like riding the cyclone.
It is riding the cyclone.
Doing an interview with that guy.
Exactly. But Pasta did a phenomenal job. They talked about the Israel-Palestine issue in ways that only Norm can. He's devoted, the majority of his life to this issue. And Norm Finkelstein started talking about the failure to hold politicians to account. And the subject of the squad and Bernie Sanders came up. But I want to play first the video that's been making the rounds of Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, because this provides context because Norm mentions this at the top of the interview. So most of you have seen this before. This is obviously the big quote. A complete siege on Gaza, no electricity, no food, no fuel, no water. Everything is closed. Okay. So here's Norm Finkelstein talking about that and the failure of progressives in the House and Senate, notably the squad and, of course, Bernie Sanders, to generate any kind of momentum, talking any kind of sense about this.
I conclude that the Israeli government has finally figured out the final solution to the Gaza problem. That's what I conclude, I infer from the information that's being broadcast by this government.
Yeah. Complete and total genocide.
And endorsed not only by...
That was good. I'm very impressed that Pasta got 5 words in edgewise. That's a record.
That's more than we did in the whole night.
It's a record when you're interviewing.
When we had him on.
He continues.
President Biden, not only today endorsed by former President Barack Obama, endorsed by the whole squad, so-called, except for Cori Bush, or the squad members who have issued statements so far, except for Cori Bush. And it has to be said that Bernie Sanders has gone along with it.
Yeah.
Now, during his campaign, Bernie Sanders did say the blockade of Gaza has to be lifted. He did say it, and I want to acknowledge it. But right now, he is a moral disgrace. He disgraces himself, and I don't say this with any glee. I say it with disgust.
Yeah.
He's often said, he doesn't flaunt it, but when asked, he said that a large part of his family was wiped out in Poland during World War II. A large part of his family was wiped out in Poland during World War II. And yet, not only has he not criticized President Biden's sending of arms promiscuously to Ukraine, in which they land in the hands of Nazis tracing their descendancy back to World War II, but now he's lent his name to the genocidal assault on the people of Gaza.
That's spitting some fire. That is spitting some fire. Now, Bernie Sanders did issue a statement today. I'll share the screen there. This is from his office. Unless you want to interject.
We can put a stop to this, but you have to send me $27.
Right. Send me $27. Exactly.
Listen, not to get off track here. The thing that fucking pissed me off the most that motherfucker ever did was when he fucking dropped out and endorsed Biden. And I don't know if you were still on the email list, but they fucking blasted out an email asking for fucking money after that. to continue our revolution. Can you help chip? You motherfucker. How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah, indeed. Well, he put out a statement on continuing violence in Israel and Gaza. Hamas's terrorist assault on Israel will have horrific short and long-term consequences. As a result of this attack, thousands of Israelis and Palestinians, including many women and children, have been killed and injured. That toll will rise. The gunning down of young Israelis at a music festival is an image the world will not soon forget. Longer term, this attack is a major setback for any hope of peace and reconciliation in the region and justice for the Palestinian people. For years, people of goodwill throughout the world, including some brave Israelis, have struggled against the blockade of Gaza, the daily humiliations of occupation in the West Bank, and the horrendous living conditions faced by so many Palestinians. For many, it is no secret that Gaza has been an open-air prison with millions of people struggling to secure basic necessities. Yeah, for many, it is no secret, but for most, it is a very, very well-kept secret, an extremely well-kept secret. Hamas's terrorism will make it much more difficult to address that tragic reality and will embolden extremists on both sides, continuing the cycle of violence. Okay, well, what also makes it difficult to address this tragic reality is the fact that no one will address this tragic reality, including politicians such as yourself, who sold yourself to people as a political revolutionary. Like, that's the point. Like, if not you, who? Right? And this is why Norman Finkelstein called him a moral disgrace, because he's somebody. Look, Bernie Sanders, in his heart of hearts, is probably a fucking communist. Like, he's probably a communist. I know the type. New York Jew communist. That's basically my dad. Right. Bernie's basically my father. Right? He's basically he knows what this is like. He knows this. He knows the deal with Russia, Ukraine. He knows the deal with Israel, Palestine. And this guy, at pivotal moments, chooses always, every time, to go along to get along. And that's why Norman Finkelstein calls him a moral disgrace, because now the time is up. Now the time is up. I don't even know what the fuck this asshole is talking about. Hamas's terrorism will make it much more difficult to address that tragic reality. There's no reality, man. It's going to be over. This is going to be over. In a few months, there's not going to be a Gaza anymore. Did you understand? The clock is expired.
Well, and the whole victim blaming element of all this, right? Like what? They were on track to get let out of prison?
Right, exactly.
They were a couple of months from parole?
Yeah, exactly.
Like what? They were left no other fucking option. They when they pursued peaceful means, what happened? They fucking outlawed BDS. Listen, you all know, if you've been watching the show, I love ancient ruins. Right? I love ancient ruins. You ever hear me talk about going to Israel? I'm not fucking putting money in their pocket. I'm not going to go to a fucking apartheid country and spend fucking money there. It's one way that I can divest. Like, I would not, consciously buy anything that was Israeli. You go and you make that illegal. So what options did you leave them? What peaceful options for changing their condition did you leave them? None. That's what I'm saying. It's so ridiculous. Like, the idea that they have agency in that way, that they have political agency in that way. Israel has not allowed that to them.
One thing Norm Finkelstein mentioned in this interview, at their right of return march, a peaceful demonstration,
right,
they were shot in the kneecaps by snipers.
Right.
Right. Oh, this is going to set back the Palestinian cause. What cause? What momentum?
They were so close.
Yeah. What momentum?
They were so close. They were just about to get autonomy.
Yeah. I mean, it's such sleazebag shit. And fairness, let's just finish the rest of it. Right now, the international community must focus on reducing humanitarian suffering and protecting innocent people on both sides of the conflict. The targeting of civilians is a war crime no matter who does it. Israel's blanket denial of food, water, and other necessities to Gaza is a serious violation of international law and will do nothing but harm innocent civilians. Okay, well then explain this next sentence to me. The United States has rightly offered solidarity and support to Israel in responding to Hamas's attack. Well, I'm sorry, how can you say that they have rightfully offered solidarity and support when you just said in the previous sentence that blanket denial of food, water, and other necessities to a population, half of which are fucking children, how do those two sentences follow each other?
Well,
only if you're a double-talking con artist politician who sold people on something that he's not.
He went to the Barack Obama school of on the one hand and on the other hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have got to recognize the conditions in Palestine while at the same time condemning the violence.
Exactly. And then he puts the bread on the bottom of the sandwich here. But we must also insist on restraint from Israeli forces attacking Gaza and work to secure UN humanitarian access. By the way, 11...
why not insist on it? Why not insist on it? I mean, you want to improve their condition? Put the UN in there. Put the UN in there and have them as an interim step, as an intermediate step, take over the management of Gaza and take it completely out of Israeli hands. Why don't you call for that? That is a constructive, realistic proposal if it really had the force of the United States government behind it. But they're not going to do that.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Work towards it. What is it? What does that? What does that mean? We pull our, see, this is what's ridiculous about it. The advantage of stuffing all this money in everybody's pocket is supposed to be that you get to call the shots, right? Like, that's the point. That's the point in the end. Whatever they fucking say about humanitarian, that's the point, to have the control. Golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. You tell Israel, motherfucker, you let the UN in there and they're going to run that shit from now on. What are they going to do? Or we're going to stop giving you money, right? That's the point of giving money, so that you can do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And let me share the screen one more time. Speaking of the UN, Ian Bremmer, this is a, establishment media guy, reports 9 United Nations staff killed by airstrikes in Gaza. Notice I put that in the passive voice. Killed by who? Killed by who? Right? Just incredible.
Russia.
Yeah, by Russia. Yeah, exactly.
Putin did a drive-by on the UN.
Janice Anderson, thanks for the $9.99. Technically, the civilians he were referring to were committing a war crime occupying the sovereign land of another country. If committing a war crime, is one still a
well, civilian? That is what the Hamas statement was.
Right, that was what
they
the
considered.
Right.
They didn't consider settlers civilians.
Right, that's what right. Russell mentioned that earlier. Kuznetsky Bassane, thank you for the $4.99. We should be discussing these future atrocities, in Gaza privately. Right, exactly. Putz the Mouse, thanks for the $1.99. Scary times, thanks for being here, telling truth. Thank you all for being here. 1,000 in the YouTube chat. Thank you for being here. Jake, how many we got over in the Rumble chat right now? 211. Great. Perfect. Thank you very much. Folks, please hit that subscribe
button. Smash the like button.
Yes, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're not yet subscribed on YouTube, if you can give us a follow over on Rumble, that's amazing as well. And please, while you're here, subscribe to our Substack. It's totally free, okay? That helps you keep in touch with us. That lets you know when we're going to go live. It's just a newsletter. We'll publish the occasional article where I'm actually kind of working on a written piece now for the first time in a while, which I'm kind of excited about. And so join our Substack. It's free. It helps you stay in touch with us because, like I said earlier, folks, they just nailed JB for doing a great live stream about this. And they're going to be coming after people left and right. It's about to get very, very serious. So please do join our Substack and subscribe on rumble.com/do-dissidents as well. Volt 35, thoughts on Jordan Peterson's bellicose tweets? I haven't read them. I'm sorry.
Did not see them. Did not see them.
This has been a very...
What, on Israel?
I'm assuming, Israel? Yeah. I'm assuming.
Okay.
This has been one of those times where you kind of sit and kind of remember, like, your political roots, right? Because in this kind of, topsy-turvy world we're in, we've heard in our circles a lot more anti-war rhetoric coming from the right wing than the left wing, right? And so we've gotten used to looking to people like, Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene for any sort of anti-war perspective. And an event like this, if you're on the left, as we are, at least for me, it really kind of centers you back, takes you back in time, kind of makes you rediscover where your politics actually come from. And this is another reason why I think Norm Finkelstein was so right to call out Bernie Sanders, is that this is an issue that only the left can be interested in. Like, this is an issue where there is no common ground to be found with the populist right,
Well, when we did that Marjorie Taylor Greene Code Pink video, some pushback was Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't want to cut the military budget. We know. It's the whole point that we made was you don't have to agree with people to ally on them on an issue. If they can bring a constituency to your issue, who gives a fuck? Like nobody was ever saying, Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably the future of the left. Like what
Right.
you missed.
Right.
If you felt a need to point out that Marjorie Taylor Greene is Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm sorry, you missed the point entirely.
Right. Exactly. Our point is that, she's Marjorie Taylor Greene. And isn't it an embarrassment? Like, isn't Bernie Sanders embarrassed to be out-lefted by Marjorie Taylor Greene? Isn't this lifelong progressive activist embarrassed that he had anti-war protesters arrested and she asked for a photo with them? Right? That's one angle. The other angle is take the win wherever you can and wherever you can.
That's it. Yeah, but it's not like we're here this week. God damn it. I can't believe we were betrayed by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Of course she's
we never considered
on the
it
wrong
an
side
alliance.
of this.
Right. We never. Right. Exactly. Quintessential. Thanks for the $25. Online political culture, sophomore finals 2030. Question 1, 10 marks. Compare the intellectual capacities of Aaron Mate and Kyle Kulinski. Good essay, right? Aaron was doing some great. He's been great on this too. We should probably reach out to Aaron Mate, see if we can.
Have him back on.
We should have him back on because that was about a year ago. He came on, I think, last October. So
he came on. That was like the first kind of like big guest we ever
big
got.
one. Yeah.
Except for Ben Burgess, who God knows why he came on. We had like 500 subscribers.
We had him on. We weren't even talking.
He must have had a free afternoon or something. He was bored.
Mate's bigger than Burgess, but we had Burgess on to talk about his Christopher Hitchens book. Like, it was not even like a news related thing. It was just, I don't know. But yes, thank you for that super chat. Think before you type. Keep up the great work, guys. Really enjoy your show. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. And hit that subscribe button, everybody. And like I said, times like these, I'm going to push this harder. I always do. But if you can follow us on one of these alternative platforms, super important. Twitter, Rumble, Substack. Obviously, the best way to support the show is to join our Patreon. That makes us censor-proof. I'm telling you, the censors are coming for all of these creators now. No doubt in my fucking mind. No doubt in my mind. And so if you want to help censor-proof this show and make sure that we can continue to operate regardless of how that works out, since no one knows, the best way to do that, join our Patreon. You can do it for as little as $5 a month. A lot of you guys are giving us, this evening alone, 4 or 5 super chats. It won't cost you any extra money. Instead of giving us 5 super chats, give us 4 super chats and throw $5 in the Patreon. That helps really solidify what we're doing here. And it's really the only way to, because these platforms are going to start cracking down. I know it. I don't think it. I know it. 007 Angelo, keep calling out the ghouls on both sides. Respects.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that you recognize that. We get some people who don't get that.
Right. Indeed. Hey, Tusker, how's it going? Thanks for the $5. The Empire is against the ropes by its own doing, and the so-called left hasn't focused on the appropriate target, so we are weak. Yes, that's very well put.
Yep.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Sevacorn, I see your super chat, and I thank you for the $19.99. Since it has your address on it, I feel a little reluctant to put it up on a screen, so I will say thank you. And if you are owed a shirt on the Patreon, it is on its way. So I will take a look at that. I will screenshot your address just in case. I'm going to do this with my phone. I'm not going to put your address up on the screen. I hope that's okay with you. But I screenshotted it. I'll double check, but the orders should all be in for the shirt, so they should be on their way. They should be at you shortly, but I will look into it. Thank you very much. Apologize for any delay. We don't make them, by the way. That's the other thing. When you order from our shirt thing, it's a print on demand type thing. So I don't know where they're
China
being shipped from. Yeah.
China.
Hopefully not from the Golan Heights. I don't know. Yeah. All righty. Let's do our final segment of the evening, shall we? All right. So
with my magnum opus.
Right, with Russell Dobular's magnum opus. So, oh yes, by the way, so this last segment of the evening, we are featuring some verite documentary work from Russell Dobular. And so in the spirit of October, we are recommending horror films on each show that are somewhat related to the themes that we're going to be covering in the episodes. It was admittedly difficult to come up with one for tonight since the themes are so dark and serious. But since we are featuring some handheld sort of first-person documentary footage from Russell Dobular, I did want to take the opportunity to recommend one of my favorite little horror thrillers of the past 10 years or so. This is a great little film. It's called The Conspiracy, and this is like a found footage suspense horror film. It's right up everybody's alley who watches this show. If you like this show, you will love,
very good.
You will love this movie. It is a great little film. It's out of Canada. Not many people have heard of it. This was back when Canada did good things. You know, this was back in 2012. It was on the festival circuit. It's streaming certain places. This is a found footage sort of fake documentary horror film about these two documentary filmmakers who are doing a film on this conspiracy theorist. You know, a guy who, you know, lives alone in his apartment and he has the bulletin boards connecting all the dots of all the problems in the world. Then he goes out on the street corner and screams at office buildings in his bullhorn. And they're making this film on him, and one day he vanishes. They can't track him down. And when they go to track him down, they uncover an actual conspiracy. It's phenomenally well done. The ending is chilling and great. It's got one of the most like satisfying kind of twists. I mean, it's kind of a twist, kind of not a twist, but one of the great reveal shots, you know, in a horror movie. You know how in The Sixth Sense when the wedding ring rolls on the floor, it's this reveal. You're like, wow, this has one of those great shots towards the end that really just kind of gives you chills. Really, really fun movie. Terrific. I recommended this to you a while ago, and I know you liked it.
Yep. Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, really, really good. It's called The Conspiracy. It's probably one you never heard of before. But
like horror fans really suffer for their fandom because most horror is total shit. Right. So you got to really love the genre because you go through 9 pieces of shit to get to a diamond.
Right.
So The Conspiracy was one of those diamonds.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It's short. It's like 90 minutes or something, but it's very entertaining. Really eerie, very suspenseful, edge of your seat the whole time. Really, really well done. Okay, so there was a rally in New York City on October 8th, the day after Israel declared war in response to the surprise attack. So there was a rally for Palestine in New York City. It was very, very well attended. Russell was there. We're going to show some footage that he took from that rally in a few minutes. But first, we have to lead by saying not everybody in New York was happy about this. AOC knocks, quote, bigotry and callousness of Times Square rally for Palestinians. Wow. The New York City chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America is facing a political firestorm after the organization promoted a pro-Palestine rally in the wake of Hamas militants' attacks on Israeli communities. The group did not organize Sunday's rally, its leadership said Monday, but several lawmakers with DSA ties are distancing themselves from what was said at the event. Quote, it should not be hard to shut down hatred and anti-Semitism where we see it. That is a core tenet of solidarity, said Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of 6 DSA members in Congress, in a statement late Monday, her first comments on the rally. The bigotry and callousness expressed in Times Square on Sunday were unacceptable and harmful in this devastating moment. It also did not speak for the thousands of New Yorkers who are capable of rejecting both Hamas's horrifying attacks against innocent civilians, as well as the grave injustices and violence Palestinians face under occupation, she said. In a statement, New York City DSA Steering Committee member Nadia Tikulsker, that's a guess there, if I'm being honest.
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Said the group promoted the event at the request of a coalition partner because we believe in equality and justice for all Palestinians and Israelis, and we know that war will take more lives.
Yeah, nice save.
Yes, nice attempt at a save there. But it's not going to work because the establishment doesn't like DSA. They're going to do anything they can to try and make Democrats feel they need to distance themselves from them. And AOC just does their bidding at this point. Like AOC should have been expelled from DSA when she voted to break the rail strike.
Exactly.
You know, she should have been out of there a while ago. She never should have been in a position to call them out.
This is what you get for star fucking.
Exactly. Yes. Very well put. This is what you get for star fucking. CJ from RBN, I believe it was him, who said, isn't it ironic that the organization who refused to call out AOC when they should have is now being called out by AOC? Exactly.
That's it.
What
do you think was going to happen? She's an establishment goon at this point. The establishment has the knives out for you. It was inevitable that she was going to turn on you. As soon as the establishment put pressure on her to turn on you, she was going to turn on you. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Exactly. Now, the group opposes harming and targeting civilians, Tikulsker said. It is shameful that politicians in our state are exploiting this moment to target a socialist organization and divide the vibrant left in New York, whose sole aim in politics is to grow the power of working people for freedom against exploitation and oppression, instead of focusing our attention where it should be on the atrocities and tragic loss of life in the region. So that was the DSA steering committee member condemning some politicians in our state. I don't know if she was referring to AOC because obviously New York City Mayor Eric Adams and New York Governor Kathy Hochul both condemned the rally as well. So she just took a kind of a vague shot at politicians in the state. Support for Israel, the piece writes on, has been a bedrock principle in New York politics. The state has more Jews outside of Israel than anywhere in the world. New York leaders in both parties often make trips there, burnishing their ties with Jewish communities back home. For the DSA, however, supporting candidates who are critical of Israel is nothing new. The New York City DSA in 2020 asked city council candidates if they would pledge not to travel to Israel, which drew backlash. Still, none of the DSA-affiliated elected officials attended the rally on Sunday. New York Assembly member Zohran Mamdani, a DSA member, also knocked the rally. My support for Palestinian liberation should never be confused for a celebration of the loss of civilian life, Mamdani said in a statement. I condemn the killing of civilians and rhetoric at a rally seeking to make light of such deaths. Now, Russell, you were there. Was there rhetoric making light of such deaths?
No. And, I am a Red Sea pedestrian, as it was called in Life of Brian.
Yes.
And, I didn't feel any anti-Semitism was being generated. And actually, there were quite a few Jewish people on the Palestinian side of the street. Now,
and as you'll see, Russell was right in the middle of this crowd. Right in the middle.
Yes. So if they were going to wicker man me, they could have done it.
Right.
So, was their take on it that this was the opening salvo in a bid for liberation, that this was a counterattack against an oppressive colonizing force? Yeah, sure. I wouldn't call the rally anti-Semitic. I would call it anti-colonial. I mean, that was the kind of language I heard. I didn't hear any language about Jews. I heard language about colonialism and how it paralleled to the history of, you'll see some of that history of other colonized people around the world, how the Palestinians shared in common with the people of the Philippines and the people of Puerto Rico and the black community. Like that That was what I heard a parallel to. I didn't hear anti-Semitism. Now, did they go out of their way, as the Palestinian diplomat said on the BBC, to take responsibility for their own actions against civilians in a way that the Israelis never do? No. People who have that kind of an issue, as I said before, they'd have a lot more credibility in my eyes if I had ever heard any of those fucking people say a word about Israel's atrocities against the Palestinians.
Exactly.
Have you ever heard AOC go, a journalist was just shot in the occupied territories and it's an atrocity and we need to speak out about this? I've never,
Right.
you know, she's trying to maintain her credibility by saying, yes, we have to have the liberation of the Palestinians. What the fuck have you ever done about it? What have
Right.
you ever done about it? If you had
Bernie
been
too.
raising those issues, and Bernie too, if you had been raising those issues all these years, and then you wanted to come out and speak about how terrible this action was, you'd have some credibility, but you don't, because you've never spoken about it on the other side.
Exactly. The article goes on. The success of some DSA members has caused friction within Democratic politics at the state and city level as more institutional leaders push back. Both top Democrats in the state legislature over the weekend condemned the rally, as did New York City Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul. Mamdani, for example, drew criticism from Democrats and Republicans alike for a proposal this year meant to penalize New York charities that provide support for Israeli settlements. See, New York, this is what, you know, this is what you run into. This is the end of the article here. New York Democratic Committee Chair Jay Jacobs said he expects there will be political repercussions for elected officials who have been endorsed by the organization.
And that's
wow.
what this is all
and
about.
There
That's
you
what
go.
this is all about.
Exactly. New York Democratic Committee Chair Jay Jacobs said he expects there will be political repercussions for elected officials who have been endorsed by the organization, which includes, obviously, AOC and Representative Jamal Bowman, who have been reelected by wide margins. I think anything like this gives voters an indication of what this group stands for, Jacobs said. Candidates who run with that endorsement or state they are members of the group, they'll face the electorate, and I think they'll see the consequences. So obviously, shame on AOC for condemning this rally, but this is another lesson in why the left needs its own movements and its own parties to arise out of these movements, because you can't walk yourself into a trap where all of a sudden the DSA exists at the mercy and therefore the pleasure to a certain extent of the Democratic Party, because they'll find a reason to turn on you, and now they have. And now they're going to try to make DSA toxic to the Democratic electorate in New York City, where DSA has caught on and actually won some gains and won some seats. And don't underestimate their success in doing that. You know, I mean, time will tell, obviously, but they've got a lot of money. It's a big machine there, right? Tammany Hall, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say AOC is going to resign her membership in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be surprised.
And Jamal will probably be right behind her. DSA hopefully will learn a fucking lesson from it. Right. Fuck these fucking people and make them work for your endorsement. And don't feel like you need to hang on to their coattails, because if where they're taking you is basically to the same place that Nancy Pelosi is, what's the point? What is that doing for you? I mean, I guess when you see that rush of membership and donations, it's hard to give that up, but you have to when the person doesn't live up to your organization, because that's how you wind up in that Democratic graveyard of radical movements, right? When you let people like AOC define you.
Exactly. Okay, let's go to the big piece of the night. So, Russell, why don't you talk a little bit about this, and then I need the mic for a minute to give our little disclaimer, as I mentioned, and then we'll play it.
All right, so this video, usually when we do these videos, the rule of thumb is everybody has a short attention span, so never go more than, like 3 to 4 minutes. I felt like this deserved more than that, because I got a lot of footage of what was going on the ground there, particularly from the Zionists, that really just says it all. I mean, I just let them speak for themselves. And the racism, the prejudice, the hatred, the ignorance, the colonial arrogance. I mean, it's just the victim blaming, the claims of victimhood. I mean, it's just it's a masterclass in the pathological nature of a lot of Zionist thinking. I mean, it's really it says a lot that in a world of the internet and cameras, with cameras everywhere, as you'll see in the video, that these people didn't think anything of speaking this way and behaving this way in public like that.
Yeah, indeed. So we're going to play this footage here. This is documentary footage. Go ahead.
So just to prepare you, it's 11 minutes. I felt like it deserved that.
Oh, yeah.
It deserves the time to see it. It's worth seeing.
Absolutely. And I just have to say this for a disclaimer here, because YouTube has certain rules about certain speech. And I don't know if YouTube is serious about enforcing these rules when Palestinians are on the receiving end of racist speech. But there is some racist speech in this video. But they do make specific exceptions in their rules regarding documentary footage that is intended to educate people and document significant news events. This is obviously a significant news event, made national news with AOC commenting on this. Russell was there. The purpose of this video that we're about to show was to document what is obviously a very important event in the news right now. And we can say sincerely, not just to be in accordance with the rules, but obviously both Russell and I are Jews ourselves, and we very much condemn any hateful or bigoted remarks that are made in any direction in this video. And so once again, the point of this for YouTube is to document a significant news event. And I think Russell did a very good job doing it. And so we're going to play this footage, and we will be back soon.
Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Netanyahu, you will learn! Netanyahu, you will learn! Refugees will return! Refugees will return! Belong, return! Free the free! Belong, return! We will never say idly while our people are colonized, brutalized, and ethnically cleansed.
The mayor, Eric Adams, perhaps the police chief. We've seen that the governor has denounced this rally, but they don't want us to have any amplified sound because they don't want us to be heard by the people of New York.
Who are the real terrorists in the world today? Israel and the USA! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! $4 billion a year! $4 billion a year! To the state of Israel! To the state of Israel! A colonial state! A colonial state! And some people may ask! And some people may ask! She's not Palestinian! She's not Palestinian! Why people were fucking colonized? Why people were fucking colonized? Puerto Rico! Puerto Rico! Guam! To the Philippines! To the Philippines! Dominican Republic! Dominican Republic! Feel the Palestinian blood! Feel the Palestinian blood! And stand in solidarity with
This is the good energy that we need. This is the good energy that we need. Because we're about to march.
Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Am Israel Chai! Am Israel Chai! Am Israel! Am Israel! Am Israel Chai! Am Israel! Tel Aviv!
All of you support Daryl!
All of you support terror and kidnap and kill innocent people. Animals, baby girls, don't kidnap some old women.
The same people, the same people that killed innocent women who once won their jobs in Tehran only a few months ago are funding these women who most likely, if they were in Iran, would be murdered.
Fucking murderers! Kidnappers! How can you be a Jew and support terrorism? How? Explain it to me. They just killed hundreds of Jews in the streets, and you're supporting that? How can you support the Jews that just killed hundreds of streets? And you're celebrating. You're celebrating. You're fucking celebrating that. My biggest dream is to send you one-way ticket to Gaza. One-way ticket to Gaza. If you take off your hijab, you are not going to survive there 1 second. Palestine will be free. Gaza is that way. Gaza that way. These guys never. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They all failed history class. These fucking idiots failed history class. They don't know shit. No, it won't. It won't. No, it won't stop on you, you motherfucker. It won't shoot. You won't be free. It's laying down on you, guys. You.
I wish it go with your children, your kids in cages. Shame on you. I wish it was her. I wish. Wonder Woman. I wish it was you. But Shambuja.
בארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים.
No such thing. What to free? What to free?
This is my home. This is my home. This is my home. Where is your home? Where is your home? Where is your home? Yeah, go back. Go back to Poland. Go back to Poland. Go back to Poland. Go back to Poland. Go back to Poland and Russia. Go back. Go back to Europe. This is mine. This is mine. Back to Gaza. Back to Gaza. Back to Gaza. Gaza, don't you cry.
Gaza, don't you cry.
We will never let you die.
We will never let you die.
1, 6, 7, 8, blah, 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 blah. Keep crying like babies. Keep crying like babies and kill Jewish babies. Because this is the only thing they know. Resistance.
We're dealing with animals. We're just dealing with animals over here. You can see the people that support them. They are posting so many false information online. I don't know how you can support such a thing. It's like horrible what's happening, and you cannot just sit aside and watch it. Like, people need to come out of their home and support this cause, because it's like, it cannot go anymore. We've been getting every year missiles, every year whenever they feel like it, they give us missiles, and we don't respond to that. We cannot respond, because if we respond, the US are coming, the UN are coming about all the human rights, even though we have the most moral army in the world. The most moral army in the world.
We can't hide. We charge you with genocide. We charge you with genocide.
There are
Even animals are better.
Yeah.
How can you take a body
laughing at our
They went to
faces.
a party of a rave, for the range in Israel, and they went there just shooting people, kidnapping
In a party.
people
Shooting
in the
people
party
and
that
kidnapping
just
people in
wanted
the
to
party.
dance. They just wanted to. How can you support this? How can you? You want a country? Come sit on the table. Come. We can talk political issues. We can arrange everything. How can you do this?
Literally, no Palestinian children are in prison. If there are Palestinian children in prison, it's children of terrorists that went to do something to us. Israelis don't go and just like take Palestinian.
We have rules.
We have rules. We've been in the army. We know.
You see these pictures
I can show
of
you
children in cages like Nazis?
if they had a gun, come now with a gun and shoot everyone, not only Israelis. They are the biggest threats for this humanity because this is radical religion. They are after radical religion. Whoever is not them, you know, this is the same like ISIS, this is the same like Al Qaeda, this is the same shit America did in 2021, in the 9/11. This is the same kind of people.
If it doesn't stop now, it's coming here.
It's coming
It's
everywhere.
coming here.
And we're dealing with it.
It's across the street. It's coming here.
We are the light of the United States.
We offered so many peace, so many times, but as they say over here, they sing, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So from the river to the sea, it's the whole country. They don't. We gave them Gaza, we gave them the West Bank. How much more can we give? How much more? Like they want everything. You cannot have peace with uneducated people.
Get over here! Come here! Yalla! Yalla! Come here! Come here! Come here! Come here!
Deep inside.
Come here! Come here! Come here! I got you! I got you! I got you! Fuck you, Palestine! Fuck you, Palestine!
It's not even about Israel, it's about Jewish. It's about the Jewish people. Zero Jewish people in all of the Middle East, but Israel. My grandmother, she was born in Lebanon. Over there, even then, before it was like in the 1920, even then, so much hate against Jews. It's not about Israel, it's about Muslims just wanting everyone to be a Muslim.
When she says, how much more can we give?
Yeah, they're giving them their land,
and that
and then locking them inside it.
Yeah, that last bit there too about how this is about Jews. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about this, you know, and especially tragic about this, is that if you look at those maps that Ryan Knight put on his feed a while back, I don't have the graphics handy, otherwise I would pull them up. There were Jewish settlements in Arab lands before Israel. I was reading a paper that a professor wrote this week. I'll probably pull that for Friday. Like I said, there's so much material every show, and we knew these shows would run long as it is. But he made the point that actually, you know, Jews and Palestinians actually got along fairly well before Israel, right? It's not like this racial hatred. Right? It's not like these two groups of people are just incompatible with each other because of who they are. It was a politically created problem, right? This didn't become a problem until it became a dispute over land. And as Russell said, even taking the imperialist approach, right? Even if we say, okay, if you were conquered by Rome, you became a Roman, right? If you were living in Mexico and that land got absorbed into the United States, you became an American. Here, you had a land grab, and then you didn't absorb them into the state because the state had to be a Jewish state.
Right. Yeah, by definition, a Jewish state cannot be anything other than an apartheid state if there's anyone who's not Jewish in the region.
Exactly.
You know, very often you will hear from people from the region, you know, the Palestinians, and I agree with this. What would be the most moral outcome of World War II in terms of justice? They should have gotten fucking part of Germany. They should have gotten Berlin or some shit.
Germany was cut into 4 parts after World War II.
Right. There should have been
There
a
you go.
Jewish homeland in Germany. That's it. And let me tell you.
Hey, if any of those woke Germans want to step up, I think the option could still open. Any volunteers?
He's still open to negotiations. We want to reopen the.
Hey, Germany feels a lot of guilt about the Holocaust. Maybe they should, step up, put their money where their mouth is.
Well, see, that's why it would have been. It would have worked out so well, because to this day, with Germans, you don't even have to say both syllables. You say "nah" and they'll do anything.
Right. Yep.
You don't even have to get to the rest of it. Nah. Okay. Sure.
Right.
Sure. Okay. They never would have tried to get that land back.
Yep. Indeed. So, I mean, you have even more footage that we can put out on Twitter and Rumble and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I have a Snyder cut of this that runs double that length. And if you that didn't enrage you enough, if you're a rage junkie, I have even worse shit going on. Like it's more of the same, but I had some moments there that, you know, for length I just had to cut. But I'm gonna drop an extended version on Rumble. Like some of the stuff I have, that's another thing. We couldn't even put some of what I have on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? They might give us a problem for that, but if they do, they do. Like, there's certain things you got to just do. You know.
No, it was just, I was honestly shocked. And I've said this before about this, you know, I haven't spent a lot of time in that community. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. I got kicked out of Hebrew school when I was 9. I'm probably I've spent more time in my life with Catholics than I have with Jews. It was amazing to me how all their arguments were frozen in amber from what I remembered from my childhood. It's the same shit, same exact shit. And the conditions for the Palestinians are so much worse now than they were then. And they talk the same shit. It's the same. We're the victims. That whole formulation, they provoke us, and then we have to respond, and then we look like the bad guys. They've been saying that my whole life. My whole life, that's what they've been saying. I had footage I cut where they're saying, and I seriously, I remember them saying this shit back then. Oh, they should get an Academy Award. They are acting so good for the cameras. Like, it's all a fucking act. It's just, it was incredible. It was just incredible to see that and to hear that. And the fucking, you know, you see the guy who early on, you know, started screaming at the Jew who was part of the Palestinian protest. How do you do that? They killed hundreds of Jews. You know, I mean, I can remember it from growing up with it in childhood. Like, that is the way they frame all of this to you. And if you're incurious, sure, you're going to be enraged, right? Because that's the whole way that it's framed.
Yeah, well,
that there are just these evil, you know, backward, anti-Semitic Muslims who just hate Jews, who have just an unreasoning madness about Jews. They just want to conquer the world and make everyone Islamic. That's what she says at the end. And the Jews are like the bastion of civilization, you know, holding out against the forces of evil and barbarism. I mean, that's their worldview, right? And then it's all tied up with the Holocaust. Yeah, which that's something else Norm got into. He wrote a whole book about how that tragedy has been exploited by certain quarters for political and economic purposes. So, you know, that's this whole core mythology that I grew up with that apparently is still very much alive and well, where, you know, the Jews are this historically victimized people, and that's why they needed a state to protect themselves. And they were entitled to that state, and they've been so moral and decent to the peoples there that there's no reason that they would do these things other than cultural backwardness and just bone deep evil.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, you have the Jewish guy yelling at the Jewish protester who was marching in the pro-Palestine march. Yeah, how can you do that when they kill Jews? Well, how can you not be with us when Israelis killed thousands of innocent Palestinians? Like, we showed you the graphic on the last show. It's in the segment. From 2008 to 2020, there were, I think, 5,500 Palestinians killed to a few hundred Jews. Like, it's so lopsided. I mean, it's incredible. And then when you add
it's
all
not
the
even
injuries,
close.
it's not even close. Yeah, of course. So, that was Russ's footage there. We got some more super chats that we got to get to before we close the shop up for the evening. Thank you all for being here. 846 strong still in the YouTube chat. We had a lot of you guys sign up for the Substack over the course of this show. I checked it while we were playing that video, so that is great to see. But if you are not signed up, please do. It is super important. It is super important, I am telling you, because there's going to be a day where I'm going to be proven right about this. It's not going to be a good day for me. I hope I'm never proven right about this, but there's going to be a day where this becomes absolutely vital. Substack and Rumble are the two free speech platforms that we can really
listen.
on.
We're two Jews. We know about building an ark for future floods.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what we got to do.
We need you to get on 2x2.
We need you to climb on 2x2. Exactly. And so do dissidents.substack.com. If you could subscribe to our Rumble channel, that helps a lot as well. The Substack is free. If you can be a paid subscriber, that really is what helps censor-proof the operation. But at the very least, it's a free newsletter. You get audio podcasts, versions of all the live streams. So if you miss a show and you're going to listen in the car or on the way to work, whatever, you get an audio podcast version. And we do occasionally put out some written material. We haven't done it in a while because we've been doing 3 streams a week, but I'm actually working on a little written piece now. So there's all kinds of cool perks to joining the Substack, and Substack is a committed free speech platform, and Substack and Rumble could at one point in the future be make or break for shows like this. And so it's really important. So if you could do that, please do. Let's take some super chats here. Black Freud. Regarding Gaza, check into some platforms that are more in touch with the success of the resistance. The IDF can't handle it this time. The electronic intifada help is on the way. Gaza, Keat. I wish I bought that, man. I really do. And I know some people are saying that. And I really hope you're right. Yeah, Heil Israel, says Black Freud. Look, I hope you're right. But what makes this so hopeless to me is that they have our backing, and they're not. This is not Vietnam. This is not Afghanistan.
Yeah, right.
You're not dealing with a country. I mean, you're not dealing with a country that has home field advantage. You're dealing with a prison.
Yeah, all things being equal, you're right. My theory is other forces are going to get involved in the region.
Well, that will. Then that's World War III. Absolutely.
Yep.
Data Battle, thanks for the 199. Please never sell out like Kyle. Well, thank you. Thank you. Man, don't you miss ragging on Kyle? Simpler times.
Simpler times. Neither me nor Keaton could rock that dye job any better than Kyle does, so not much danger in that.
Russell, why don't we hit our second 666 of the night, since we got 666 likes.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Kyle Smith, for pointing that out to us.
That is, by the way, that's one of my favorite metal songs. You know what my favorite is, though? It is an Iron Maiden song. Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Yeah, you told me that before. Indeed. Is Netanyahu psychopathic? Asked James.
Yes. Let me think for a second. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Simple question, simple answer. No doubt about it. And, it's very clear. I mean, if you look into his biography, it's pretty clear that he's wanted to go all out on the Palestinians for most of his life. And if you look at the trajectory that this has been on for the past 75 years, that's why I am pessimistic. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong. Tusker, thanks for the $5. I semi-tricked Ben Burgess to say a single positive comment about Stalin like 3 years ago on a YouTube show. Oh, nice. Well done. He does a lot of debate work too, so he's probably difficult to trip up in that way.
Yeah.
So you're good. Laugh. Thanks for the £5. Haiku. No justice, no peace. Tai Chi can be important. Also, stop winking. Is that a note for us? Are we winking?
Are we winking?
I don't know if I'm winking. I'll take the note, though. Appreciate it. Kenneth Locke. This is for the conspiracy recommendation. Oh, so you like that film as well. Yes. Appreciate it. Yeah, go seek that one out. You will not be disappointed.
Good little indie horror.
Yeah, really, really well done. Auntie Ann, thanks for the $20. Y'all might head over to Good Logic YouTube show that just started. Got into it with him last night about Palestine and Israel. Asked questions, and he spent 5 minutes screaming at me, stay warm and safe, soup weather. Okay, so good luck. I'll write that down. Do you know, it doesn't have to be a super chat. Maybe Jake can flag it. At what's the time code where he starts screaming at you, where you break him? You had your autumn leaves moments over there. Now what you have to do is you have to troll the chat. I triggered you, and you screamed at me. There's autumn leaves still brags about the time that Russell banned her.
Does she still talk about that?
Well, I'm just going based on what you said. You said that you've seen her.
I mean, but I haven't. We haven't covered the Vanguard in months, so I haven't
She's
seen
on the
their chat
majority
in
report
months.
chat too, I think.
And we haven't done anything about them in months either.
Yeah, we haven't. Really
I only see what's going on in those chats when we're doing a segment about them.
Got it. Oh yeah, that's true. We do owe Dave Delarai 2 meditation bowl rings. Got to check out that Blumenthal on Tim Pool's show of weirdos. Yeah, I got to do that. Trust a hippie. Never trust a hippie-looking motherfucker in a Patagonia uniform. Is that the Tim Pool sidekick there, the guy with the long hair? No, we owe Dave Delarai 2 singing bowl rings or 2 cowbells, but he's opting for singing bowl because he gave us some big donations while you were away.
While I was away?
Yeah. I think some of them were on the Friday shows, so...
Beautiful. That's one. All right, and this one's for the gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long can I keep that going? Pretty good, right?
That's good. Yeah, that's very good. Very well done. Very well done. Auntie Ann says it's right up in the beginning of the show, like within the last 15 minutes. Okay, great, perfect. Thank you. And good job, Jake, catching that chat on the rebound there. That's a pro. GB, thanks for the $5. The clouds of a world war gathering over the Middle East. Thanks for your fight. Thank you. Thank you all very much, folks. These are tough shows to do. These are not fucking easy. You know, I mean, this is not what we signed up for. We signed up to make fun of the Vanguard, you know.
We wanted to be a gossip channel.
Yeah, we just
fucking goddamn World War III. Fucking
wanted to talk
bullshit.
shit about Crystal Ball. Yeah, this is really raining on our parade here.
No, you know what? I told Keem because, you know, you're editing something, you just get in the zone and you're about the editing. I didn't realize how much like ick got in my brain from just even editing that video, just from like watching that footage. Like afterwards, I felt like I had to take a shower, and I did.
And you did. That's true. That's true. When I called to give him notes on his edit because he sent it to me, it's like, here, watch this. Let me know what you think. I called him, no answer. It was getting a little late in the day, so I was a real Jew about this.
Yes.
And I called him again 15 minutes later, and he picks up the phone. I'm in the shower. I'll call you back. So he was
no, you know, it was fucking annoying, man. He's fucking with my music.
Oh, so you had the music on and then the phone, right?
The phone keeps fucking ringing. This fucking Jew.
It was just one of those things where, you know, I had a lot going on today, so I couldn't get to watch it until probably later than I should have. But then I was nervous that we were going to run out of time. Auntie Ann says, first 15 minutes, I think. Okay, perfect. Beautiful. Thank you. I'll find it. I will find it. Thanks very much. Buster Peak, thanks for the $20. Zionist hate almost brings me to a bad place. I have to step back once in a while and just breathe. Well, this is the thing.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, that was like, even to work with that footage was just like,
well, because they're so racist. Ugly. They're racist in a way that you're allowed to be racist. Like, they are the last group of people who are allowed to be openly racist.
Well, not only are they being racist, they're accusing the Palestinian people across the street and the protesters generally, they're not all Palestinian, of being racist. Right.
And we didn't hear any anti-Semitic slurs coming from the protesters.
I kept that little bit in. There was one woman, she was obsessed with that angle. I cut one thing I had of her, but she was, that's called genocide. That's called genocide. No, I think fucking locking people up for decades in an open air prison is called genocide.
Yeah.
I don't think what they're doing is called genocide. How do you figure? Figure? And I have another clip later on. She approached the two that I featured a lot because they were like priceless for representing the Zionist point of view. And she goes, I think we should yell at them, you hate Jews. She thought this was a brilliant eureka moment to yell at them, you hate Jews. She was really obsessed with that angle, that it's this racism. I mean, it always reminds me of the Woody Allen scene in Annie Hall. Yeah, you hear what he said? Jew eat, Jew eat, not the Jew.
Yeah,
and then I'm in the record store. He says we have a special on Wagner, so I Wagner Max, so I know what he's saying. Right. Like it's that. It's that everything's anti-Semitism, not that you're fucking colonizing and fucking brutalizing these people. Couldn't be that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and like I said, we didn't hear any anti-Semitic slurs from the protester side. When I said in my disclaimer, I know some people in the chat said,
I didn't hear one thing like that all day.
Right, exactly. And I saw somebody in the chat saying, well, Keaton, you just gave AOC shit for condemning the rally, and then you just did the same thing by saying that you condemn, hateful speech on both sides. I'm just saying that I gotta say that, obviously, just to reflect where we are. We have to just say that for YouTube, just to be clear. We wouldn't.
We're in East Berlin.
Well, we also we wouldn't condone that either.
No, we wouldn't. I'm just saying, I heard that.
Saying we didn't hear it. Right.
What you saw in that footage, that's what happened, man. The reason I don't have such juicy footage from the Palestine side is because it didn't happen. I would have filmed it if they had been screaming things like that. If they'd been screaming anti-Semitic shit, I would have captured it. I would have used it. Didn't happen. I didn't get anything like that because it didn't occur. It wasn't there. That was all on the other side of the street.
Right. Exactly. Let's go to a Rumble rant, Joe Mama. No call feature tonight. Thought that goes into effect Sunday. Well, the Q&A goes into effect next Sunday. But yeah, we are now on the policy where the callers call in on Sunday for the Q&A for exactly this reason, because we knew tonight's show was going to run really long. So on Sunday, we'll plan a show that's going to run a little shorter so we have time for the Q&A. We knew this was going to be a 3-hour job between all the chats coming in and the topics were very lengthy. So, like, if we took 4 calls now, we'd be on till midnight, and then people would conk out and not be able to watch the whole thing. So that's the idea behind that. So Sunday, we'll plan for a little shorter show so we have time for the Q&A. But thank you. Data battles. You guys should be Kyle and Crystal for Halloween.
What did we talk about doing? We talked about doing something like that.
I have been, let's say I've been browsing around online for a short blonde wig. I have. We won't say anything. We don't have anything confirmed yet, but I'll tease that detail since you gave us $1.99.
I'm gonna do Cenk and Brownface to get us canceled.
Yeah, then you'll get us
canceled. I'm gonna get us canceled.
You would be a good jank, but the thing is, you can't.
What's his name? Just did it. He does it without makeup. What's his name?
Yeah, Steven Crowder.
Crowder does.
Yeah, who's been canceled off of every single platform he's ever.
Well, but that's not why.
No, but I'm just saying that's not a guy who you look to. Well, he did it.
No, I'm just saying he just did it without doing
he
any
did
makeup.
it without the makeup. But I'm just saying. Generally, don't look to him as the sort of as the standard of what you can get away with. Shine the light. Thanks for the $5. Zionism is racism in service to imperialism. Bottoms up movement needed to shatter the swarm. Please interview Dr. Shiva for president. Well, thank you for the $5. I said last time I'm not really interested in interviewing Dr. Shiva, but I take your points for sure. All right, Dave Dillerai wants another singing bowl ring. He gave us another $50.
All right, so see, I always forget, like with the directional mic, it's tricky.
Well, that's all right. I mean, for the $50.
See, I've been doing it on the other side because I don't want to hurt people's ears.
Well, he paid for it, and the show's almost over, so we can hurt people's ears. We've got to make sure we can hear. Boom.
I mean, theoretically, I could keep that going forever.
That was a good one. That was a good one. That was definitely that one we could hear for sure. Jason Patrick Quinn, thank you for the $1.99. Appreciate that, my friend. All right. That looks to be everything. Folks, that was quite the show. We knew it would be. We thank you very, very much for being here. Once again, if you want to cement this show, if you want to make this show strong, if you want to make this show less at the mercy of the tech overlords and the censors, you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and sign up. Sign up for as little as $5 a month. You get your show credit shout out. You get call-in access every Sunday, plus call-in access to 2 exclusive Patreon and paid Substack subscriber exclusive streams. So 6 call-in shows per month, including 2 streams that are just for our paid subscribers. We just did one yesterday. That was a lot of fun. Our next one's coming up in a couple of weeks. So we try our best to make it worth your while because our patrons are the backbone of the show. They are what make this show possible. We could not do this show without them. And so if you want to join the Cool Kid Club, go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and help us keep this project afloat. I believe that is everything we have for tonight. That's Super Chat's good. Rumble Rant's good. Up 2 more Super Chats here. 1 more Super Chat here. From Jason Patrick Quinn, thank you. And China Shill. Operation Protective Edge is what started my anti-imperialist left journey. Free Palestine. Thank you guys very much for being here. We appreciate you all. We will be back here Friday morning. Like I said, there's a chance we'll get the hammer dropped on us for this episode. It happened to JB.
We will see.
We will see. But if we do, the show will go on. We will be on Rumble. That's why it is critical that you subscribe to our Rumble channel, and even more important than that, the Substack, because the Substack is where we send you an email telling you where and when we're going live. So if there's a stream we can only do on a certain platform, we've done certain shows as Rumble exclusive shows, that's where you find out about that. So if you are on our Substack list, you will not miss an episode. You will be in touch with us. It is critical that if you care about staying in touch with the show, you join that Substack. It's free. It's an email newsletter blast. We're not pains in the ass. It's not like, you sign up to fucking Old Navy and you get 11 coupon offers a day.
Yes.
We don't send you a million things. It's not like every time we clip a video, we put it on a Substack post because I don't want to bombard people.
We do have a page too, girl.
Exactly. Exactly. We're not one of these people who you sign our email list and you get bombarded. We send you the stuff that's important to stay in touch. And so please, please, please join that Substack. Thank you guys very much for being here. It was great to be with you all tonight. We will see you back here or on Rumble or maybe both places. Wherever we are welcome, we will be on Friday morning at 9 a.m. We hope to see you all
wherever fine anti-Zionist podcasts are sold.
Wherever fine anti-Zionist podcasts are sold. Bonzo Bean Singing Bowl sounds like shit on my end. Well, he outbidded you, my friend. That's all I can say. Thank you very much. Folks, have a great evening. We'll see you Friday morning. Until then, of course, be safe and be well.
Courage. How's that?
Please clap.